morning, everybody. I'm EnviroBoy. This is my channel. Tuesday morning, gonna do a little bit of writing. As we do, Leela's here with me. You can't see her yet, but we'll get cat cam going. Of course, I just said it, and now she's gonna probably stand up and jump away before we get the cat cam going, aren't you? Because that's just how fate works and everything. She's a little squinty-eyed, and so she does this thing where sometimes she like itches her face or cleans her face a little too intensely and like scratches her, one good eye. So then her eye gets all watery and stuff for the day. And we did that this morning to ourselves, so we're feeling a little down. Goofball. First time she ever did it, I was like super worried. I was like, God, why is her eye watering and gooping so much? What's going on? Then it got better, and I was like, okay, well, I guess if it's fine. And then one day, it would happen occasionally, and then one day I am watching her clean herself and everything's fine. And all of a sudden she's like sitting there like really getting in there nice and good, like if you have like a little eye, like an itch in the corner of your eye, you just kind of get in there and rub real good. She did that and she came out like all squinty and like, ow, ow, ow. And I'm like, did you scratch your eye? Is that what you're doing? You gosh darn goofball. And that's where we're at. So we're feeling a little sorry for ourselves this morning. But that suits me just fine, because now she'll just sit here and cuddle while we do some writing, which is honestly, so the weather has turned again. We were in an unseasonably warm patch of it being like mid 70s, and that's Fahrenheit because I'm American and that's just how life operates around here, right? But it was very unseasonably warm and sunny, and now it's turned and it's cold and rainy again. So a cold, rainy day spent being all cozy with a kitty on my lap. That's, well, you know what? That's a pretty okay way to spend the day. So I'm okay with it. I know. I'd prefer you didn't hurt yourself in the process, you goof, but here we are. So that's what's going on today. We're going to do some writing. Going to work more on our campaign that we've been working on. I think today, we've been talking a little bit about the broad strokes of our storylines, and so I think I want to spend some time rehashing out and kind of working on the details of the story beats, because I kind of have a couple ideas and everything, but I have yet to really fully map out like a chapter by chapter approach to what I want to have happen. So I think ultimately that's what we're going to work on today. But of course, we're going to start with doing our usual working on a rune project. Are you going to stay with us, or are you interested in... Oh, I know, that's very sweet. You're a very sweet girl. Looking like she might want to go wander around, but here's what we'll do. We'll go ahead and bring us to our live scene, so that way you guys can get at least a little bit of time with Leela. There she is. She's very sheepish right now. How you doing, honey? I know. What are you doing? Why are you hiding? There she is. Oh, I know. I don't know. I have a general understanding of what cat behavior is, but not a flawless understanding. So here we are. She's gonna just nestle up while we do some writing. Yeah, let me bring us over to our magic, our rune system here, and we'll go ahead and work on that a little bit. Ice Knife is gonna be our next one, where, like I keep explaining, after a certain point, everyone's gonna be like, "Yes, we know. Stop saying it." But I'm redoing a lot of these. Because I have sort of, since writing all these ones out, I've sort of altered my approach to writing these runes, and so I'm kind of bringing them up to speed here. Ice Kniffy. I know. Hi, sweetie. Is that eye still watering a little bit? I know. I'm sorry, honey. I'm sorry. It's a real pain when you hurt your eye. I get it. Literally and figuratively, it's a pain. Alright, so let's see. So we're going to work on Ice Knife. Let's go ahead and pull up our spell herbage as written in the game proper here. We want level 1 is what we're working on. Filter spells out. There you are, Ice Kniffy. Copy that. Over to, and then let's go ahead and put that in place. Perfect. Okay. Get rid of our extra little stuff that we don't need in there. I appreciate that OneNote tries to automatically cite things like that, but the format that it puts them in isn't always super helpful. So I just kind of get rid of it and know that I've originally taking it from D&D Beyond. The other thing about it too is citing is only marginally useful when we're doing what we do, which is to modify and edit things a little bit so that they're more they're homebrew type stuff. So it kind of stops being in the original source. I mean, it's like good to note where it comes from, but well, it's not like I'm publishing this right now. So anyways, Ice Kniffy. You create a shard of ice and fling it at one creature within range. Make a ranged spell attack against the target. On a hit, the target takes 1d10 piercing damage. Hit or miss, the shard then explodes. The target and each creature within 5 feet of it must succeed on a dexterity saving throw or take 2d6 cold damage. So I think this one's actually going to be pretty easy. So we're going to do... So when you imbue this on an item, I think the idea here is that it's going to be the imbued item is coated in a layer of ice. I think what I want to do with this is actually, so it's coated in a layer of ice. And what I think I want to do with it is, I'm actually going to take away the extra piercing damage for this. Normally I almost do the opposite where I'll take away whatever like the sort of explode damage, you know, that splash damage effect that's going there. Usually that's the first thing to go when I want to try and draw something or dial something back. But I think in this case, what I'm imagining is that it coats the item in ice so that it doesn't change the effect. Like it doesn't add any extra damage to it. But the ice will then shatter and then do that splash damage on everything. So I think we're going to... I'm going to change this, and I'm actually going to change this part too, and I'm going to say on a hit. Hit. The shard, the ice. The ice then explodes. The target and each creature within 5 feet of it must succeed on a dexterity saving throw or take 2d6 cold damage. And that's good to go. What's up, honey? Are you going to go look out the window? You see fun stuff there, or are you just stretching? We don't know. We don't know. We need to think about it a little bit. Higher thought can be difficult for a cat. Isn't that right, sweetie? I know, it's a good kitty. Yeah, I think as a baseline, actually, that's pretty good right there. I think I want to add one other thing. Ice regenerates within... I know, hi. It's a good kitty. I know. It's a good kitty. I know, I see. Goofball. Trying to think about what would be a good rate of ice regeneration. I almost want to say it takes like a minute for the ice to regenerate. So it's like basically the first hit of combat will do that, and then if combat goes on for a long time, it like will refill with more ice. But I kind of want it to actually be limited. And I think that is okay, because this is a level 1 spell, so they're basically getting infinite free uses of it without having to worry about spell slots or anything of that nature. So I know, hi. Oh my goodness. My goodness. Oh, a very sweet girl. But yeah, so like if there's not going to be the limitation of you can only cast it so many times per day or per long rest or something like that, I think having a fairly long regen time is okay. And having it be a shorter regen, a shorter regen time is kind of the territory of a higher level spell. So we might reduce like the regen time by 10 seconds or something like that with each higher level that it's imbued at, as well as doing more damage. We can do that. So I'm going to say the ice regenerates after 1 minute after shattering. Yeah, I think that's sufficient right there. I think that's fine. Hi. I know. You're so sweet. Good girl. Got her. She's such a good girl. What a good girl she is. Higher levels when you cast the spell using a slot of second. Okay, so first off, it's going to be view the item at second level or higher. The cold damage increases by 1d6 for each level above first. And the regeneration time of the ice is reduced by 10 seconds for each level above first. Boom. Just add that in there. All right, Leela's gonna go wander around a little bit, so I will adjust us and give us Savaki cam for a little bit here then. Oh my goodness, she is shedding quite a bit today. I don't know what the deal is. It's stress from having poked her own eye. Goofball. Yeah, I think that's good. Yeah, honestly, I think that handles it just fine. I don't think it really needs anything much more than that. 1d6. Already does 2d6, yeah. Yeah, because of how much damage that shadow does to each nearby target. Dexterity saving throw. Hold on, I do need to make a note here. The dexterity saving throw is DC 11. Because it's always set to 10 plus the spell level for an imbued item. Since there's no spell casting modifier relevant, you don't have to be a magic user to. Hold on, my cord is trapped by Savaki. You don't have to be explicitly a magic user to use a magical item. That's kind of the point of a magical item, is the item serves as the conduit for magical energy. So you don't have to. It's like the computer serves as the conduit for mathematical energy so that I don't have to use math. Yeah, I think that's good. I think that's good as it is, honestly. Type of item it can imbue. We'll say can imbue anything but most effective on weapons. That said, I do like the idea of if it's on armor, it's like if you get hit, the thing will explode. Kind of like that idea. You just have to be careful with that one, because if you get hit by a ranged attack while you're near teammates or something, then it's gonna be awkward when you accidentally send ice shards into all of them, right? But it can be good if you're like if you're the main tank and you just run into the center point of everything. As like the first hit you take, you kind of like let yourself take that sacrificial hit, and the first one that hits explodes the ice around it. Kind of like that idea. I actually kind of want to do that as the example item. We'll say the I don't know, the icy cloak of the icy I don't know, breastplate of ice. I don't know a good catchy name for it, unless I wanted to just like be not descriptive with it. And so the idea here is a vest made popular during let's see, I'm like kind of inventing a bit of history, but I kind of like this idea. A vest made popular during a time of strife in we'll say in a cold land where guerrilla warriors would equip themselves with ice vests and run into thick groups of enemies, invoking attacks and causing icy shrapnel to injure the enemies for other combatants to rush in and mop up. Kind of like a suicide vest concept. They just run in there and let themselves get hit for the sake of icy doom hitting anyone there, which is sinister and dark but effective. I kind of want to give a secondary item too for this one. Like, I might give a second example item. We'll call it frozen. We'll call it frozen swords. Popular among trying to think about like what would be the specific, like what would make something like this relatively common. It will say popular among oh, here we go. I have a better idea. Frozen dagger. Popular among thieves and thieves and assassins. Popular among thieves and assassins as a getaway weapon that, man oh man, I'm struggling with the spelling today. Weapon that can be thrown to injure and distract multiple enemies, giving chase for a quick escape. Boom, there we go. How's it going, Jebediah the Amish? Not much. We're just getting started here. We're working on doing our creative warm-up with turning the spell Ice Knife into a potential rune for my players to encounter. Wow, am I really that bad at spelling? I'm having a rough day with spelling today, though. It's gonna be a day. We're gonna keep the coffee going. This is why we do warm-ups, though. We can get the brain juices flowing. Do I want a bad idea? Always. Why is that even a question? Of course I do. Alright, let's see here. Mechanics, how it's cast. Ice naturally coats the item. Impact causes the ice to explode. Go. Range matches item. Let's see. We'll say matches item. Item imbued. Baseline contact unless the item itself is ranged. Right. So it's like if you have an ice arrow, obviously that would have range, but as a baseline, it's just like contact. The item that gets the item impacts whatever it directly hits. The idea here. Duration. Duration, it's just sort of a baseline. We'll say ice regenerates every regenerates in one, not I, in 1 minute. We'll say unless imbued at higher level. Boom, there we go. Cool enough. Attack save, baseline DC 11 +1 for each level above 1. So if you imbue it at a higher level, you can have, it makes it more difficult for enemies to dodge. Let's see here. Leela has set herself up over on the couch there, so I'll get cat cam going again. You can kind of see her there in the corner. She's in her little favorite corner of the couch. It's her favorite corner of the couch right now. It tends to change from time to time. She'll find one favorite spot for like a month, and then she'll move to a different spot, and she'll realize she likes that one, and she kind of migrates. She has a series of spots she likes to go between. The one right before this one was she was under the futon a lot. We got a futon in the guest room, and that's where she liked to hole up and sleep. She has lately been spending a lot of time under the bed too. I don't know if it's warmer under there or something, but she likes to go hide and sleep under there too. So now that it's getting colder, she's migrating to all of her like more closed in areas where she can like find like a little nest to snuggle up in. So she likes that corner of the couch because there's blankets and a soft couch, big poofy couch and the pillows and everything. All right, let's see here. We got all that stuff. So as a baseline, I think we've got this good to go. So now we get to do, let's see, I don't have any other additional notes. Kind of added everything. Need to. Now we get to think about what happens if the item is accidentally gifted sentience, which is always fun. So if it's good, so as always, if it's good, it does something beneficial for the owner. If it's evil, it does something mean to enemies of the owner. If it's lawful, it kind of it makes its sort of range or its targeting or its impact more focused and a bit more powerful. And if it's chaotic, it's got a broader range of effect. It can affect more people or a larger area, but for less impact. Magic item that multiplies mistakes by 1,000. There, and then the item. This is my that's a very interesting example to give. In general, that does sound like a horrible item. There are so many bad implications of that one. That's like beyond pranking. That's something that you give to your worst enemy because you want to ruin their life right there. How does the item distinguish between a mistake though? Like, who determines the mistake? Is it a mistake based on the interpretation of the person who made the item or the person who used the item? Because like, what if? So it's like if they, so like, you know, if they okay, so using the idea of like not peeing indoors, what if they're camping? What if they're camping and they don't, you know, and the better option is to do that because there's no toilet inside. You know, if they pee inside the tent, that would be a problem. That would be the mistake. So it's like, you know, who determines those things? Character flaws, like. So it's up to the person owning it to determine whether that's a mistake. Because I feel like they probably wouldn't. Anyone who's just bad at making decisions, they probably don't think they're making a mistake. I don't know. I feel like that item has to be sentient in order for it to work. So that way the item can make decisions and the item can decide whether or not they're making a mistake or not. Which would make it really funny if they just have opposite alignments from the owner, because then it would be really amusing things. Like you have a good owner and an evil item, and the good owner's like, I'm going to give food to the homeless, and the item considers that a mistake, so it multiplies it by 1,000, and so it feeds every homeless person ever. And it's like the item's like, haha, take that. Now that'll teach you to make a mistake. And the good guy's like, oh, you got me. Oh, and the DM is disappointed. Now that's just even riskier, giving the DM that kind of power. I know I can't be trusted with that kind of power. Therein lies the true bad idea. DMs we already have so much power. We don't need to add more. Jebediah the Amish, thanks for the follow. I appreciate that. Glad you're having a good time. See, these are the types of deep philosophical conversations that can be found on my streams, whether or not the concept of peeing indoors is good or bad. So these are the type of hard-hitting questions that we all need answers to. All right, so if the item is good, so if an item imbued with Ice Knife is good, doing something extra, I feel like I'm trying to think about what exactly. I feel like if it's lawful, you can kind of imagine. So here's what I'm thinking. I think the lawful and the chaotic ones are evil. So chaotic, the item propels the ice shrapnel even further, though with less impact. Creatures within 10 feet must make a dexterity save, or else take 1d6. What is it? Piercing damage? Cold damage. 1d6 cold damage. So it's like it's got a broader effect. It's got a broader range of impact, but it's not quite as powerful. And then lawful, what I'm thinking is the item only explodes in ice shards after the ice has entered a wound of the target. The target automatically takes 2d6 cold without the chance to save, but there is no splash damage to nearby enemies. So it's like in that one, it focuses all of the cold damage to the target. There is sort of the idea for that one. So it's like a narrower but a bit more powerful. And the bit more powerful is that they can't make a save. There's no chance to make the save. The ice just explodes, and it's like, oh, well, that's game over. So now good and evil. I'm thinking the good one, we can say the item is capable of melting ice shards before they hit targets. We'll say creatures within range that are friendly to the owner. Creatures within range that are friendly to the owner do not take cold damage. We can just leave it there, actually. If it could be cold napalm. That would be... That almost sounds more like the territory of cursed. Napalm is like the whole concept of that one is that it's just out of control. And like a sentient item, like that kind of goes against it. The sentient item has a bit more control than normal. God, cold napalm, that'd be terrible. That'd be terrible. Like gosh, you thought Frozen was bad when she was just like not intentionally trying to freeze everyone. Imagine when she does it on purpose. Okay, I don't know exactly what you mean by Hitler knife, but I feel like I don't really want to explore that one. That's a vague term, and I feel like that's what makes it so sinister. Let's see here. Hitler soul and a knife. Okay, let me reiterate. I like where you're going with this. All right, making like that would be an evil knife. The concept of an evil knife is that like the personality is like so the personalities will impact what sort of extra bonus the item gets if it's accidentally granted sentience. An evil item just does something that's a little bit like that's in the league of what it already does, but it's a little bit more power. It does something a little extra that's mean to the target. It's less that the item itself is just like evil and trying to do conquest over the world, and it's more so that it has like a sick sense of humor is sort of the concept here. I like where your head's going. I mean, you know, to a degree. I don't know that anyone should like the concept of Hitler's soul in a knife. That sounds very problematic. So let's see. Okay, you go ahead. Well, tell you what. You go ahead and trademark the you trademark the evil dictator knives. I'm gonna keep working on ice knife over here. I feel like you've got your own idea going right now, and I don't wanna infringe on that. So you go ahead and come up with those. And already done. That's concerning. Great. No, so I think the evil knife, what that's gonna do, is the item. Here's what my thought is. The item leaves a coldness in the enemy that lingers and chills to the bone. We'll say targets that fail their dexterity save have movement reduced by 10 feet for 1 minute. That's kind of what I'm thinking there. Is it like it can like, because it's cold damage that it does, it sort of leaves that lingering cold in the targets, and yeah, and it slows them down because they're just like they're slowed down, they're sluggish, they're like almost frozen. I think that works. I kind of like that. I think that's good. Yeah, I'm content with that. All right, now we get to think about what happens if it's cursed. So if it's cursed, it like the way I always do the cursed items is like, the example I always give is I try to stay in the spirit of, like, the One Ring from Lord of the Rings, right? Where it's like there are benefits to using the item, but there's also risk involved in using the item. And then the other thing is that the thing will try and compel you so that you can't ditch it. Like in this situation, it is much more that the item wants to be the most powerful item it can be, and that includes being with the most powerful creature. So it's going to do what it can to try and like it doesn't want to be abandoned. It wants to be, if anything, if it's going to be abandoned, it wants to be abandoned according to its decision, not the owner's decision. Sorry for bad English, Icelandic. That's no problem. I haven't had issues understanding the words. The fascination with a Hitler knife, maybe a little concerning. I can't honestly say that I relate to that, but no, you're fine. Okay, let's see here. So I'm thinking the extra powerful benefit for this one is that I kind of like the idea of this one not only doing the exploding I like the exploding ice damage, but like also automatically doing the extra piercing damage too. Well, I don't know. Let me think about this a little more. Because the other thing that I always try to do is I try to make sure that, again, the benefits and the side effects are always sort of like thematic, right? They kind of match the general theme of the item. So if we're talking something that does cold damage, I kind of want to be able to keep with that theme. I'm wondering if there's something we can do with, like, maybe the item, because of the cold damage, like it can also leave patches of ice on the ground or something like that. So it's like when it hits, and any creature that fails, like the cold, not only the same sort of bone chilling effect that the evil one does, but then it also can like freeze the ground or something like that. Or maybe it's like the cold then emanates from creatures that it's hit with the cold or something like that. And then I'm thinking the side effect is going to be something along the lines of, like, it indiscriminately jumps maybe from creature to creature. So like that cold damage will then on the next round sort of explode out from each creature, so it can kind of create a chain effect of cold. I don't know, that would be really hard to mechanically keep track of, and I feel like that might be pretty overpowered pretty quick. I'm trying to think about what would like a cursed ice themed weapon be like. Wondering if it's like we can do something where, like, maybe it's like it can numb the effect of whoever it hits. Reverse cauterize. So like freezes the wound. Yeah, so it's like if it does that, and maybe it's like kind of along those lines, if it does something along the lines of like it can freeze and make, if you get a hit, whatever limb or wherever it hits, like it'll kind of numb and freeze it or make it useless or something along those lines. Trying to think about mechanically what that would do, though. Right? Because thematically that's really cool, but in terms of tracking that during combat, that's really challenging to keep track of, like, if a creature is missing an arm and everything. And it's like, how do you decide that? Based on just rolling whether you hit or miss. So I think that's in the right direction, but I think mechanically that one's too much. I think I gotta I think I can. I think I have to do better than that idea. I do still kind of like that idea of it doing something to freeze the wound, or like you say, like, you know, like anti-cauterize. Would reverse cauterizing just be like freezing it shut rather than burning it shut, or would it be leaving it open so that it like flows even more, like an anticoagulant that just makes it so you can't blood clot and it just like bleeds and bleeds and bleeds? This one's more akin to it, right? Because it's like the opposite of hot is cold, but the opposite of closing a wound is opening it. So maybe it opens the wound, but you're like really cold while it does that. There it is. We got there. I figured it out. Right, yeah. So cauterizing a wound heals with heat. So it's like if you reverse cauterize it, does that seal with cold, or if cauterizing is to seal a wound shut, does that mean that reverse cauterizing is to open it more? Yeah. So it would be using cold to make you bleed more somehow. This is a tricky one. Trying to think about what would be like a balanced, functional extra benefit. I'd almost do like chaotic evil. It just like has a wider burst effect and everyone's slowed down. Creates like creates like a cold storm that like emanates from the creature that's hit. I feel like that's maybe the closest to what I'm looking for. Is it's like because in general we have splash damage from it, right? And so I'm wondering if like it feels like doing 1d2 overtime. Yeah, something along those lines where it does like lasting damage. That's actually a really good idea, because as a baseline, it does that cold damage immediately, but it's like because it's from icy shrapnel. Maybe it does just like persistent cold damage to the creatures it hits. I like that idea. Yeah, hypothermia. You can call it that, and you can just do some damage for it. Combine your guys' two ideas, because those both work really well. Okay, all right. So let's say creatures that fail their dexterity saves become hypothermic. They don't have rules for like cold or hypothermia and rules as written, do they? I don't think they do. I've never heard of it, but hypothermia? Doesn't seem to be. Nope. Okay. So we can just do whatever the hell we want. It's like that's one of those things where it's like I'd never heard of a rule and I didn't think there was one, but you know, it would be it would have to be it would be such a unique one that it could still exist. Be a con save, I'd imagine. So here's what I'm thinking. The reason I say fail their dexterity save is because the baseline is whether you get hit or not with it is a dexterity save, right? Because it's the ice shards going there. So if you fail that and you get hit, it automatically causes hypothermia. And so then I'm thinking on subsequent turns, you can make a Constitution save to try and fend off, the hypothermia. So whether or not you become there is just dependent on if you get hit with like the cold splash damage that the item naturally creates. And then I think you're right, it'd be a con save afterwards. So creatures that fail their dexterity saves become hypothermic. We'll say at the beginning of each turn, hypothermic creatures receive 1d4 cold damage and have their movement slowed by 10 feet. Right, so they're 10 feet per turn source. So the baseline is they can only move 20 feet rather than 30 feet. Each turn, hypothermic creatures receive 1d4 cold damage and have their movement slowed by 10 feet. At the end of their turn, hypothermic creatures can make a Constitution save. And we'll set that to DC 11 like everything else because it's the level 1. They've to fight off the hypothermia. Boom, there we go. Recreational uses. We'll leave that up to the imaginations of the players. I'm not gonna sit here and try to create a rule system for weird weird intentional cold damage things. That sounds like a BDS game, and it sounds like a very different game than what I'm running right now. So no shade if that's what you're into, but that's a different game for a different platform. Yeah, so the problematic side effect here is what I'm thinking is the item. It's not even really. So yeah, okay. So we're gonna say the Dungeons and Daddies that actually exists. It's a podcast, and they make it a point of pointing out that it is not a BDSM podcast. It's an excellent actual play podcast too. If you like something that's a bit less rules heavy and more story heavy and very humorous. Okay, so here's what I'm thinking. So first off, the item cannot discern between friend and foe. So all friendly. So we'll say so all allies can be impacted. The other thing that I'm thinking is if the item is held bare hands for more than 1 minute, the wielder must make a Constitution save, or else they also become hypothermic. So it's like the thing is so cold. It's like such a powerful cold that like the idea is that like the owner is always largely going to be safe. It's a magical item, and it has enough wisdom to know that it's like, oh no, like the person using it doesn't get hit with the shrapnel. Like that's just kind of like a baseline. It's a world of magic. We can say whatever we want. And that's just a baseline understanding to make sure that any magical item isn't immediately rendered useless by it possibly hitting the person. It's the person using it with splash damage. But I do like the idea of like the item is so cold that unless you're intentionally like making a point to wear gloves when you use it, so it's easy enough to overcome, right? It'll start sapping. It'll start like kind of freezing you and sapping the cold from you and your body, and it can cause like that hypothermia in you, as well as just like your friends are definitely at risk there, which is a baseline understanding, but I want to make sure that's like written and clear, because that's it's like you can just kind of like hand wave it one way or another when it's not a like most people will kind of understand the rule and be fine with it, but for a cursed item you definitely want to make sure that that's clear and known, because again, the idea behind a cursed item is that there's risks to using it, but the benefits will outweigh the risks in many situations so that someone will still try to use it. So what it takes to remove must be removed magically. If the owner tries to abandon the item, it will freeze itself to the owner, immediately inducing hypothermia and cussing. Gosh dang it, why can't I spell today? Okay, man, oh man, it is a rough day. It's gonna be a rough couple hours of writing here at this rate, I'll tell you what. Immediately inducing hypothermia and causing 2d6 cold damage. Boom, there we go. I like that. I think that's kind of a cool one. Like the idea of if you're trying to ditch the item, right? Because it's like like I say, I try to invoke with the cursed items. I try to invoke the sort of that the essence of the One Ring, right? Where it's like it will in some way, shape, or form compel you to not be able to release the item, and so it's like you either have to use magic to get rid of it, like a dispel magic spell or something to give you some sort of magical edge over the item so you can get rid of it, or else the item in some way, shape, or form binds itself to you. And I like the idea of the item, it just flat out freezes itself to you. I think that would be like, because like that's the type of thing where I can imagine if someone doesn't really realize they have a cursed item and they try to unequip it and suddenly it like freezes itself to their hand, or if they like, if it's a sword that they have, you know, like sheathed on their back or something, you know, Witcher style, and they try to draw it, the thing just like freezes to their back or something like that and causes this like severe cold damage. That would be like, just the shock of that happening would be so delicious. There'd be such good drama to give to players. I like that idea. I really like that idea. So yeah, that's pretty good, and that kind of handles that particular imbibement there. That gives us that man, that one does really turn into a pretty complex one once you start thinking about the sentience and the cursed, even more so than a lot of the others. But hey, that's what makes it a fun project, right? The complexity, the challenge of figuring it all out. That's why I do it. I love it, and that's why it's such a good warm up for writing, to just kind of work on a couple of these sort of imbibement rune type situations. I really enjoy them. Thermia would theoretically slow people down too. Yeah, that's where that's where we put the extra powerful benefit. We have each turn hypothermic creatures receive 1d4 cold damage and have their movement slowed by 10 feet. And so so inducing the hypothermia, referencing itself there with the hypothermic creatures receive 1d4. So yes, it would. Make body parts off. Not necessarily hypothermia. That's full blown frostbite at that point in time. So that's like prolonged hypothermia. Hypothermia itself can be recovered from as a baseline, because hypothermia just means low body temperature. So in theory, like in a most definitional sense too, it's like someone who's just been outside in the cold for a little while can become at least slightly hypothermic. And you can recover from that. You just have to make sure it's not prolonged. At least that's like definitionally how it would be. Colloquially, that, you know, depends on how people use the word. But yeah, no, that's good. I like that. I think that's a fun one, and I actually kind of like I like that this one has kind of like a sinister undertone to it too, because a lot of them tend to be a little goofy, like when we did Grease here. This one tends to lean a bit on the silly, so it's nice that you can kind of have some that are just naturally a little sinister too. I have a spell called the hypothermia and counterpart called hyperthermia. Ooh, that would be cool. Where it's just like, it's not due to fire or anything like that. You just induce someone to start overheating, or just like induce like shivering and coldness in them. That's actually kind of a twisted concept. I feel like those would be pretty dark spells. Although I guess maybe it's in how you use it, because I could see a medic having those, like, you know, a field medic, a D&D field medic, having those spells ready to go, so they can like save lives. You know, it's like a search and rescue team. They make sure that they have like hyperthermia ready to go, so if they found someone who was like caught in a snowstorm or an avalanche or something like that, and they can just raise the body temperature. Not just fireball. Well, no, not necessarily. So a fireball would probably induce like life-ending hyperthermia, but you don't need fire to become hyperthermic, right? You can sit in a hot sauna for too long and become hyperthermic, you know, or you can like really, like, your body will induce hyperthermia in itself, and that's what a fever is. You know, a fever is just mild controlled hyperthermia. That's why you have a fever, you know. So no, it doesn't necessarily have to be a fireball. And that's like the whole idea. So it's like maybe like a search and rescue team will have hyperthermia ready to go if they're searching through like an avalanche disaster. Or oh, I see what you mean, minus fire. I thought you were saying like the way it was formatted there. I thought you were just saying like, you know, fire spells or something like that. Scar dehydration, other things like that. Yeah, I like that. Delirium. Like, it caused delirium and stuff like that. Yeah, no, hyperthermia is a little different than fire. Even if you take away the fire, I mean, I guess if you're just talking about, because fireball could in theory raise the body temperature, but it's like the fireball assumes that it like caused surface damage. Hyperthermia is more like from the inside out, is what I would imagine. Yeah, like that's what it could do if you wanted to do it to be harmful. I don't know. I'm more intrigued by the ways that those could be helpful, right? You could use hypothermia for if there are people who are like you could use that as people who are like EMTs just traveling uh, people who are just traveling, like who are EMTs that walk the streets on days when it's like really unseasonably hot. So if there's like people who are just overheating out in the fields or something like that, they can cast like hyperthermia to reduce their body temperature and help them not die at the same time. But then it's like a double-edged sword, right? Because you can keep field hands there, but maybe that just is like an excuse for being able to overwork them even more, because then they could just be all like, "Yeah, you've been healed. You're not overheating anymore. Get back to work." Right? And it's like you can be abused and all that kind of stuff. Oh my gosh, there's so many implications behind those spells. I love it. Those would be fascinating. It's a powerful spell. Ball, fireball minus the fire. Yeah. It just like your most like I like to imagine that you just like produce a dodgeball that you can just like whip at people and you just hear that poof as the ball like hits him in the head. All canine-based creatures that fail intelligence save throw chase the illusion of the ball. Right? That's right. I like that. Make the ball disappear to really like you dispel it to really mess with the dogs, because like they see it leave your hand and then the ball disappears and they can't find it, and you don't have it anymore, but the ball never landed. Oh man. Teasing animals was never so easy for budding sociopaths. It'd be kind of a convenient litmus test for that kind of stuff, though, wouldn't it? Oh my goodness. See, this is why homebrew is so awesome. Dodge a ball. That's right. If you can dodge a ball, you can dodge a fireball. It's a training mechanism. It's fireball with training wheels. So that way you can practice with it. Like it's like using paintballs for target practice, right? And all that kind of stuff. Or using like dull knives with red lipstick on them for knife training or something. Like a safe way to still indicate. It's like fireball. If you just get hit with the dodgeball, all you get is just like the embarrassment of having been plastered in the face, but there was no fire, so you're good to go. Maybe a little concussed. Well, it depends on how hard that thing was whipped at you. But okay. All right, so that's all good. I like that. I like what we've come up with there. That's good. And now I'm ready to I'm going to have us go over, and we're going to switch gears a little bit, and we're going to work more on this campaign template that we've been working on for quite some time here. So I'm really pleased with, so last week we spent the time to sort of re-update my templates that I use for all of my writing and stuff like that, just because all of my needs for a campaign, they kind of evolve over time, and it's always like the more involved you get in a hobby, the more you learn about it, the more you understand what you're looking for and everything. So I updated all of my templates, and we've been going through and kind of updating the campaign that I'm working on, the campaign that I'm running for my players, with the new format, and it's been really good. It's been really helpful. And so I want to keep working with that. And we've spent some time working on sort of our main story plot elements, just kind of talking about the big overarching things with it. But now I want to take some time. I kind of want to dive a little bit deeper, and I want to kind of revisit my chapter outline here and start really mapping that out, because the other thing about it too is I have a general idea of where I want the campaign to go, but I have yet to really outline all of the chapters beyond like chapter 5. And now that my players are getting close to reaching chapter 4 in this campaign, I really want to start. I want to make sure I've got that all plotted out, because I want to make sure I've got lots of stuff that I can start feeding them information and all that kind of stuff to start painting the picture of the whole campaign and the all of the conflicts of the campaign for being a bigger, a more overarching thing than even what they already perceive it as. So. Ball dragons. It's they're like the Star Wars droidekas, only they're dragons. They can just curl up in little balls and like roly-poly their way around. Shot a while ago, friends, Streamversary based on Tarkov made a spell called Covering Fire, which is an illusion that simulated gunfire in sight. I don't know, it was a distraction. Ooh, I like that idea. It's kind of like a specified prestidigitation type of situation. That's an interesting use of spell. I like that one. I like that. Okay, I like that auto mod is totally cool with a singular ball, but as soon as you make it plural, it's like, oh no. Oh, that's okay. That's okay. We can use We can use the word balls. Okay, so again, Jebediah, I love the creativity, but you're talking about an entirely different game. I ain't playing that game with my players. Nope, that's a different game. That's a different game that I will not play with my friends or family. Nope, no sir. Nope, entirely different game right there. For an entirely different platform. Twitch would get very mad at me if I tried to take that route with it. I would likely not be streaming here much longer. But you know what? If that's you, you do you. You do you. Or a large group of other people. You do a large group of other people. It'd be a 7-day ban. No, I'm not famous enough for that. I would just get banned. I'm not famous enough, nor am I enough of a busty woman. If I were a bustier woman, then I might have a chance. Because Twitch is very forgiving of those people because they draw in lots of viewers. I am not busty enough, nor am I famous enough. I would just get banned. They'd be like, this scrub ain't worth our time. You gotta be self-aware about these things, okay? You gotta know the pros and cons of your personal situation, and that is unfortunately one of the cons. I am not pretty enough to get away with that one. Oh boy. Let's see here. Nope. Okay, that's not an important email. Only the ladder to the ladder. Oh man, I said a lot of things. Which part of the ladder? That I'm not pretty enough? That's true. Oh boy. All right. So editing rate. I want to work on this. So I'm gonna copy and paste this just a whole lot, just so that everything is ready. I want to make sure that I've got the template ready to go. So 3. This is a 20 chapter campaign. This is meant to take players from level 1 to level 20. So I'm just going to go ahead and fill out the template completely. It's going to make it huge, but that's okay. That's okay, because this is where we're really getting into that I'm not popular enough. I don't know, man. I don't know. Look, all I'm saying is I'm not willing to take the risk right now. I like streaming and I want to keep doing it. So I'm not going to make the risk. Tell you what, this is what I always say. I will do just about anything on camera. So if you guys start paying me enough, I'll start an OnlyFans and I'll do all kinds of risque things. But I gotta be making, like, you know, top porn star money if I'm gonna start doing top porn star things. Okay, that's just it. This everything you see here, all of this, it ain't free. Okay, I ain't giving that away for free. I'll give away my mind for free, but my body, that comes at a price. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We got 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. There we go. Okay, so there's our 20. Do hair stuff on it. I don't even know what that would be. I am so detached from how wild and crazy much of that whole spectrum of the world can get. I don't even know what that would mean. I have no idea. I'm a little concerned. All right, let's see here. So the way I've got my template set up here is we have major plot points, minor plot points, and then other notable changes. And the idea for all these chapters. So when I'm going about, like, so basically we're sitting here, we're storyboarding a campaign. Because the way I run my campaigns, like, there's basically 2 ways that you can DM. And there's infinite ways you can DM, but they kind of all methods that you can do kind of fall into one of 2 approaches. You can either take it, you can do it the way I do it, which is a plan ahead approach, or you can be a more reactionary approach. So like reactionary DMing is kind of more so you have a general idea of what the bad guy is, but the story, you kind of let what the players are doing drive the storyline, and you plan each session based on what the players did before and what they want to do moving forward. An excellent way to DM. For me, because I do so much world building and I have so much stuff in mind for what I want to do, I plan ahead, in which I sort of have a basic understanding of what are all of the major problems that need to be handled, and I like to kind of plot out when abouts in the progression of the story each different thing can handle. The way I do it is a lot more work up front, but it makes things a lot easier to go from week to week, session to session, without me having to modify a whole lot, other than just maybe like altering a few details based on like who did the players kill versus who did they allow to live and all that kind of stuff. And so that's my approach to it, and that's why I like to plan out and storyboard all these chapters. The challenge is making sure that I don't make things that are so concrete and are so dependent on all kinds of different like very specific things happening that players can derail it with ease, right? So that's the problem with planning ahead, is if you don't do it carefully, players can derail it. And I know that because I have made many mistakes in the past trying to DM this way, where players have really derailed things and I've had to rewrite a whole lot of stuff. So okay, let's see, I'm falling behind the chat. What do you guys got? OnlyFans is basically a Patreon. People use it for stuff that isn't not safe. Yeah, okay, there are people, but let's not beat around the bush here. We know what OnlyFans is for. We all know. Come on now. Tower campaign is definitely one that you can do. I'm not running one right now, but a tower campaign is there. I would say a tower campaign that would count as like most likely. Well, I guess it just depends whether like it still could fall into one of those two general groups of planning ahead or reactionary, because it's like each floor you could just plan week to week. Like what would be a fun floor this week for them to have to deal with, or you could plan ahead and be like, these are the like the 50 floors that are in this tower. Each one has a different theme, right? So it's like you could do so that one could fall under either purview. The campaign that I'm running right now though is definitely not a tower campaign. So we have our basic plot points here, and what I need to start doing is thinking about exactly when different things will happen, and like, so one of the keys to making sure that I get this right and don't have to constantly rewrite things is making sure that the plot points are simply just, when do problems arise, right? It's not they have to solve this problem in this way. It's more so just, when does a problem appear? And you can make it dependent on them solving previous problems, right? But the trick here isn't to be all like, okay, they'll like, this one becomes available as soon as they walk into this place, or this thing happens when they go to this location. And instead, each chapter, the plot point is simply something along the lines of, okay, this army attacks this city, and they have to deal with that, and they'll have to deal with that, and that is like, maybe that's what happens in chapter 1. Like we dive in, and that's kind of what we did, right? So the chapter 1, the way I've been running the story so far, and what happened in the first chapter for the players is they had to help defend the city because their city was under attack from another army. So they had to defend that, right? So that was like the problem. It's like the city is under attack. It's up to them how they deal with that, right? The next chapter was then basically, that was the only one that really even had a prescribed solution, which was basically they have to make sure the city doesn't get overrun. And that's pretty easy. That's not really too much railroading, because it's like, there's a problem there, and their option, they could either help defend the city or let the city die out, in which case they're going to die because the army will eventually hunt down and kill them. And so it's like, you could let that become just like a runaway scenario, but players probably aren't going to choose that. That's a pretty easy one to sort of like railroad them into. But at any rate, that's the first one. So then chapter 2 was dependent on, okay, they've managed to fight them off from the city. So chapter 2 is now, the problem is that they're still laying siege to the city, even though they're not actively attacking the city, right? And that was dependent on them successfully doing their part to thin out the numbers, while other, contingencies of battles and stuff were happening outside, right? So it's like, you make one problem dependent on another problem being handled. And that's how you can kind of stepwise things. One of the other tricks to making sure things don't get derailed is when I'm planning these plot points, notice how I have, I have the plot points managed here or pointed out, and we outline what is happening. We don't tie those two locations, if that makes any sense. So you can kind of try and say like, oh, this has to happen in here. And there are some places where that will be the case, right? Based on if I have specific ideas in mind for when a certain plot point will happen. But in general, if you just say, okay, the next plot point is that, oh, they have found a clue about an enemy encampment that they need to go deal with. And if you don't tie those two locations, that suddenly will make things, that will open up the world to a much more sandboxy feel, because players can go anywhere and you just plop whatever dungeon or whatever clue or whatever plot point into that location. And you just, like, if there's an NPC, you just plop that NPC in that city, in that location. So those are a couple basic principles that I try to keep in mind when I'm outlining all these things. It's imperfect, and sometimes I will still mess things up, and sometimes I will still have to rewrite things. But generally speaking, those are the principles that I try to keep in mind here. So what I want to do is I kind of want to first just go on and plot out what are going to be some of the major plot points and when are those going to happen. So the major plots that we have here are, we have the Snow Army, which is, okay, so the enemies that they're facing are, they're in a northern snowy environment, and they're dealing with a Gnoll army. So naturally, they're Snow Gnolls, or Snolls. That I can't claim credit for that. My players came up with that. It was brilliant, and we just have been going with it. So they have to deal with the Snow army that is laying siege to their city, and largely, or that was laying siege, but generally speaking, the Snolls are at war with, you know, these the other humanoids. They're like sort of enlightened humanoid city, which is a dying city. There's a whole lot that goes behind the world that kind of leads to all this stuff. But as it stands, that's not even a major concern as far as plotting these things out. Just the important part is Snow Army they're at war with the Snow Army, and largely speaking, the Snow Army has the upper hand. The city of Rhodanos, which is where the players are originally from, it's an isolated city. As far as they know, they're the last populated city on the planet. Again, due to world history, that's just not super duper important at this exact moment. It's important to everything always, right? The world is post-apocalyptic, so it's important to everything always. But it's like the precedent is like, we're here, the city is dying out. If they don't save their city, if they don't win this like war with the Snolls, that's, as far as they're concerned, that's the end of like enlightened, intelligent life as it stands. And so there's kind of like this desperate situation of survival. What the players will eventually learn is that the Snolls are actually just sort of a tool being used by a more like a larger, more sinister, more secretive threat, which is there are a contingent of elementals that want to kill basically all mortal life within this area, so that they can turn the mortal realm eventually into their own new elemental realm, is what they want to do. That's their goal, and their reasoning behind it is kind of one based in primarily just like being dicks, as well as having the hubris to think like, we can do this, so we're going to do this, is kind of what they're after. Like, they were displaced during the apocalyptic event, and so rather than trying to find a way home, they're just kind of like, we're just going to make this home. And like they believe they can do it, and they're like, we're going to do it. We're more powerful than these mortals. We're going to do it. They can't stop us. And so they've been using the Snolls as sort of like a tool, a resource in this goal of theirs that they have. So what I want to do is I want to try and plot out the basic plot points of what's going to happen, what the different problems are as they arise. And one of the reasons I like to make sure the plot points are kind of set up in order is because what I can do is, when the plot points are in order, I can design specific dungeons, and those dungeons can be mapped out to whatever location players decide to go to. And the fun part about it is, like, I can try to guide them towards a city, but what this will allow me to do is a couple things. If the plot points are separate, I can give them multiple locations at a time. So at one point in time, it's going to be, you find a map that has 3 locations marked. They can go to whichever location they want to, no matter what. The next plot point is the next one that's going to happen, because it's not tied to any of those locations. You can move that dungeon to whatever the location. You just make sure the dungeon is like, yeah, there's an abandoned temple that they've turned into a base in this city. You have to go there. And as far as players are going to know, well, I forget what the term was. It was the quantum plot point, where it's like, it was, even though, like, as far as the players are concerned, the next plot point was always at the next place they go to. But really what that does for me is it lets me pre-plan out the dungeon, including the enemies and everything at the proper level for where I want the players to be at any time, right? So if I'm trying to plan out the level 4 plot point here, I can, make everything planned out, and then it doesn't matter which city they go to at level 4, I can give them the level 4 dungeon. And that's the reason for keeping the plot points separate from the locations and all that, because then I can give them 3, like I said, I can give them 3 places, and no matter which place they go to, they'll face the level 4 dungeon next. So it gives them that open world feel, that sort of sandboxy feel, and it satisfies the players. While meanwhile, behind the curtain, the DM, myself as the DM, I can just do what I need to do to minimize my work and not have to redesign every dungeon if they go to them like out of order. Right, and it's just like, if I need to make sure that they take care of those 3 dungeons so that they level up properly before they deal with a certain boss, that's fine. You just make sure that those 3 dungeons, include clues that like maybe they need all 3 clues to every location, or they start to point out other locations and it still doesn't matter what order they go to, you still just give them the dungeon, so that the final boss could be in any one of like 7 cities or 7 locations or whatever, and it's just no matter what happens, the last one they go to, that's the one that has the boss. So you can just kind of do stuff like that, and that's one of the best tricks for giving players an open world that they can explore at any pace they want to, in any direction they want to, for any reason they can come up with, without it disrupting the things you've planned. And so, like, kind of figuring that out was one of the most important things. So, but at any rate, basically the progression is they're going to deal with the Snow Army, and then as they're going along and learning more about the Snow Army, that's when they're going to start learning, more about what's going on with the Elemental Army. Essentially, like, the basic idea is that the Snow Army is going to take up maybe the first half of the campaign, and then once they've dealt with that, they're kind of on the second half of the campaign where it's largely there. I'm going to try and sort of interweave them a little bit, so it's like they won't deal with like the final bits of the Snow Army and all that kind of stuff until much later, until like maybe level 13 or 14, rather than like at level 10, because this campaign, I'm writing it to run from level 1 to level 20. It's ambitious and optimistic to think that any group will stick together long enough and do it, but I plan for success, not for failure, so I'm doing it. Because worst case scenario, you just kind of expedite things and give them, and you just sort of reskin one of the bad guys and give them one of the earlier dungeons as the final dungeon if you need to, right? It's easy enough to do that kind of stuff. But yeah, so the idea is that the Snolls will be taken care of sometime around chapter 14, and by then it'll be all dealing with elementals. So starting sometime around maybe level 8, like chapter 8 or something like that, is when they're really going to start seeing like, oh, there's this elemental army. Level like 11 or 12 is when they start seeing like, oh, these are related, these aren't separate issues. And then once they deal with the Snolls, like that's when they're gonna get like confirmation, like they like these guys, it was important for us to deal with them, but they were the puppets and the elementals were the puppet masters all along. Excuse me. So that's the kind of idea that I have. So these two things are kind of the same plot line, just different parts of it. So basically what I want to try and do is I want to try and plot out a basic step, a major step for each of these chapters that has to do with those major plot lines. And then we can go through and do all the minor plot lines, which are kind of related. But what we can do is I want the minor stories are kind of like side parallel stories to the main one, the way I like to do it. And so once I know the main one, then I can start plotting in the side stories as sort of like side missions that will add to the major one, give them extra clues, give them like extra clues, extra resources, all that kind of stuff that can be tools to be used, but aren't essential. So if they miss it, if they don't understand it, or they just don't want to do it and don't care, that's fine. It doesn't impact their ability to go about their main goal, is sort of the idea. Dungeon in a Dragon. Ooh, I like that idea. You could do like the Ender's Game thing, where it's like the skeleton of a giant dead dragon ends up being like a city, and that's what the dungeon is, and that would be a really cool thematic thing. But that's basically what I want to achieve with all these outlines. So one thing I'm going to do just now, because I keep looking at it and it bothers me, it's tedious, but it's going to have to be done anyway. We're going to change all of these things to match each chapter, because there's one chapter for each level. It's like at chapter 1, they begin at level 1. By the end of chapter 1, they're supposed to be up to level 2. That's how I balance things, and that just for me as a DM makes it easier for me to sort of plan out and balance dungeons as I need to, so that way there's steady progression as things go. It's, it adds an extra layer of work that some people might not want to do themselves, but that's, I like the punishment. I like the pain. Dragon ate a mimic that didn't die. Would the mimic then just eat the dragon from the inside out? Seems like it would just be an infinite food source for the mimic. 15, 10, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. There we go. Symbiosis. Yeah, there you go. That's what it is. The mimic helps digest things for the dragon, so that way the dragon has an easier time digesting. It's like it essentially adds an extra stomach to the dragon, so it's almost like a cow. All right, there we go. So there's all of our chapters there. And we are going to go through, and I don't know if we'll get to all of them today, but I do want to get to those major plot points. But we're going to do it in like 2 minutes, because I have to pee, and I'm not going to do that on camera. As we've discussed, there are certain things that you just can't get away with on Twitch. So unfortunately, you guys can't come with me when I go to the bathroom. But that's what I'm going to do. So I'm just going to run an ad break For any of you guys out there that are subscribers, you guys get some retro commercials, or if you're cool people that use ad block, don't worry, I totally understand. You guys get retro 90s commercials. Otherwise, you have to have like modern day commercials. Companies try to sell you things. But I'm just gonna run a commercial break since I'm not gonna be sitting here anyway. But I'll be back in like 2 minutes after relieving the bladder, and we will continue on this outline, and I'll talk more about my process and sort of how I like to get into the details of how I like to sort of decide these plot points and all that kind of stuff. So sit tight. I appreciate your patience. I'll be back very shortly.
Pull and peel. Pull and peel.
I make toys.
We play games. He loves me.
I get an A. I got an A plus.
He loves me not.
No batteries needed. New Twizzlers Pull and Peel. Chewy, delicious cherry-flavored candy with nothing to pick up. Cause I ate it all! New Twizzlers Pull and Peel.
Introducing GoldenEye 007 and the first Bond adventure, where you direct the action.
Do you know how to use one of these?
Shot by shot by shot. Load a rumble pack and see how it feels when 007 meets Nintendo 64. See the next Bond movie. Tomorrow Never Dies.
We interrupt regular programming for this McDonald's commercial break. It's McDonald's delicious Big Mac sandwich. It's 2 all-beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, and onions on a sesame seed bun. And now it's only 59 cents with the purchase of any size fries and Dr. Pepper or other soft drink. 59-cent Big Mac sandwiches at McDonald's. Have you had your break today? We now return to your regular programming.
The quest for the newest fruit roll-ups continues.
Finally, Stimpy, it is ours. Don't you know what that means? A creation of my very own, made from my stinky sweat socks. He's gone mad. No, Ren. Yes, yes. Look what you've done. My plan's ruined. You idiots.
It's new Nickelodeon Peel-Outs, Ren, Stimpy, Doug, and more. Nickelodeon characters now on fruit roll-ups. What fun fruit roll-ups will we roll out with next?
All right. Appreciate the patience. We're back at it. I am feeling relieved and ready to keep going. So, major plot point. Chapter 1. So, chapter 1, 2, 3, and 4, we can kind of just fill in the blanks that we've already done because I've already planned and run these parts. So, it's just a matter of filling things in. So the major plot point is so we're gonna say Snoll army here. So what is the next problem in the major storyline? So this one is really it's what's the first problem. Like I say, one of the tricks. Please excuse me. I need to put my hands. It's cold, and the air is cold and dry, which means naturally the backs of my hands are now going to spend the next few months constantly being dry, cracked, and if I don't take care of them, possibly bleeding, and it's very unfun. Very unfun, so I gotta do this. But I've learned that I have to do it up here, otherwise you just see me going like this, and that gets really awkward for everybody. Again, there are limits to what I'm allowed to do here on Twitch, right? There are different platforms for different things, and this is not the one for suggestive camera activities. At any rate, when I'm plotting out these types of things, one of the things that's really important is to make sure that like your story plot points are like when you're planning things, especially if you're planning ahead, you don't want to plan what they need to do. You need to plan what the problem is, right? That can kind of be a subtle difference, but it's an important one because if you plan what they need to do, you're going to fall into traps where, like, that's where you are going to run into a railroading situation where either players are going to feel like they only have one option, or they're going to constantly be derailing the thing, and you're going to constantly have to rewrite things, right? So it's like if I were to make the plot point, if I were to make this next plot point, or this first one be that, like, oh, they have to kill X number of characters or X number of enemies to deal with the problem. Well, what if they find a way to capture one? you know, and I didn't plan for that. It's like, oh, they were supposed to kill everyone. Now I have to run an ad lib type of situation, right? And that might disrupt everything. Like, how do I know they're at the level? Because I had said they needed to kill X number of enemies, and that would be what got them up to the level, and so on and so forth, right? Like, if you say that they need to do that, or vice versa, what if you were to try and make the plot point of like, oh, they need to capture an enemy so that they can use them for blackmail for this, that, or the other thing. What if they find a different way to get what they're trying to get, any information they want or need, and they don't feel like capturing anyone? Well, then what do? Do you say like, oh, well, you have to capture someone? You know, it's like, obviously that's going to be a real railroady situation, or you have to rewrite things, right? So instead, write what the problem is. So in this first chapter, it's pretty simple. The city's under attack. Real basic, simple, straightforward problem, easy to solve. You know, and the players can do it. They can do it by capturing a whole bunch of people. They can do it by just killing all of the enemies. They can do it, you know, any number of ways. They can do whatever they want. They can do it in any number of ways. They can do, you know, approach it however they want, because I haven't prescribed a solution. I've only outlined a problem. And their job is to do the problem. The way I describe it a lot, and the way I've gone about writing most of the stuff, the background, doing the world building, is as the DM, my job is to come up with the who, what, where, when, and why. It's players' job to come up with the how, right? So I describe who's causing the problem, you know, or who the NPCs are, who's available for them to talk to, what is there to do, like what are the problems, what can they, you know, what needs to be done at any given time, right? That's the problems. Where are the locations? What do they look like? You know, describe all the locations. Where can they go? When is kind of what we're doing right now, where it's like, when do problems arise? When do different, you know, key plot points happen? Why is kind of the history of the world. Why is it like this way? Why are the enemies doing this type of thing? Why does this happen or that happen? And then it's up to the players to figure out the how, right? How do things proceed? How do they solve the problem? How do they go about fixing these issues? That's like the most basic way to think about these things when you're trying to plan. If you're going to try and plan an entire campaign ahead of time, which is what I do. Granted, everything that I say, always keep in mind, always with a grain of salt, because there are a million ways to DM, and if you have a different approach to things that you prefer, then by all means do that, because the best way to run a game as a DM is the way in which you and your friends and your player, like you and your players, hopefully they're your friends, but the way in which you and your players are going to have the most fun. So if ignoring my advice and doing something completely different is what leads to you and your group having the most fun, definitely do that. The things that I just relate are basically, the reason that I say them as like definitive truths is because I know that my way is a way to do it, and the reason I know it's a way to do it is because this has been refined over 10 years of me doing things not this way, like doing a lot of wrong things, leading to this as the better way versus all of the wrong ways. There's probably even better ways than the way I do it, but I do know that this way works. I do know that this has been a successful one at me making campaigns that my players really like, and I do know that these methods that I use have sort of subverted a lot of the past blunders and issues I've run into while being not as good of a DM as I am, you know, nowadays, like 10 years into my, not quite 10 years, well, getting close. So I've been playing D&D for like close to 15 years of my life. And DMing, maybe more like 7 years. I'm not quite that old. Getting there. But, you know, at any rate, I've made a crap ton of mistakes. And so all my methods are basically just me teaching myself and guiding myself to avoid making the same mistakes. And now I'm sharing them, so hopefully you guys can avoid mistakes that I've made. But anyway, what is the next problem? The major storyline. So the basic problem here is, so the problem... so actually here, the major plot point we have, what am I calling it? Yeah, the Snow Army. So I'm just trying to make sure that, like, when I say the plot point, it matches up to one of these titles, so that way I know which basic storyline I'm dealing with, right? Because we have the Snow Army and the Elemental Army. Those are basically one and the same. The blank army, the enemy army, that's that's like the main, most forefront issue. It's not even actually the biggest overarching issue. The biggest overarching one is healing the land. That's kind of the what's at the crew of everything that's happening here. But from the player's perspective, for pretty much the entire campaign, this is what's going to be the most obvious to them, are these two armies. This is happening in the background, and this is a way for them to, if they want to dive deeper and have something a bit more a bit larger of an implication for the entire world as opposed to just their city. This is sort of what's happening in the background. And solving this issue can be a partial solution to this. This will have deeper, more extensive solutions and more extensive actions required, but this actually isn't the main plot point from the character's perspective. From the character's perspective, they are simply trying to stop the armies that are actively trying to kill them. This, the healing the land, so the land was damaged during that apocalyptic event, which has led to there being other armies that want to take over this area, that like, because the Snolls and the Elementals would not have been in this world were it not for the unhinging, the apocalyptic event that caused all the damage, right? And so if they can heal the land, they can prevent future issues like this happening. So they don't need to solve this issue to solve these issues, but solving these issues will play a big role in freeing up the land to have this dealt with, right? So it's like this is a partial solution to this. This, healing this, would be a huge solution above and beyond what's needed to handle these. So even though this is the bigger one, it's a separate one from what the players immediately care about. Right now, they just immediately care about making sure that their city doesn't get overrun and murdered. But the point is, there's basically going to be 3 plot points every time I do it. There's going to be one of the armies, there's going to be healing the land, and then there's going to be dealing with Hell, which is an entirely side issue. Hell is another faction. She is a deity who was also displaced and is building an undead army, but she's much more patient and is kind of willing to just sort of wait and see how all of these armies and wars kind of pan out. And so she's just kind of operating on the side, and whether or not players do anything with her kind of depends on what happens to them and how they interpret and feel about those things. So that's something that's always kind of present, but never really a necessity. It kind of runs parallel and can kind of expand upon everything that's happening, but isn't necessary here or there. So there's going to be plot points outlined for each of them. For the titles, it's just going to be which one we're talking about. So the problem is that the Snolls are attacking Rhodanos. They have broken through the walls and are ransacking the streets, killing civilians and looting shops. Boom, there we go. And that's the problem. That's all there is. We don't need to do anything more detailed than that. That is the problem here. Any more details about that whole situation goes into our outline. That's when we get into, so we've got like our chapters, right? Our chapter outlines here. So any more detail than that goes in the chapter outline itself, right? Because we've got our chapter outline where we've got dungeon outlines. We talk about all the history, all the details, and all that kind of stuff. And like I say, that this one has already been done, so we're kind of just re-emphasizing what we already know in this other one. This is just us kind of trying out and using the new templates that's a bit more detailed for the region at large. But that's the problem. What is the beginning condition that starts this problem? So this is kind of meant to be what activates this problem, right? And so for most of these, it's going to be, oh, they need to have finished this, that, and the other plot point or something along those lines. They need to finish X, Y, and Z plot points. So for this one, it's like, what is the beginning condition that starts this problem? NA, this is the start of the campaign, and this is the conflict. Conflict. We throw, man, oh man, I'm really struggling with the spelling today. It's a clumsy day for my fingers, I'll tell you what. This is the conflict we throw our players into right off the bat. Let's see here. Hold on, I gotta check this email really quickly just to make sure it's not something that needs immediate attention from me. Okay, no, that doesn't require immediate attention. We're good to go. I have to be aware of my phone and be ready to respond to situations for my job that pays the bills. Since y'all won't pay me enough to get naked on OnlyFans. Oh boy. Okay, like I say, I know I'm not pretty enough for that. Anyway, so this is the start of the campaign, and this is the conflict we throw our players into right off the bat. Doesn't need anything more than that. No more details are really necessary for there. What will be considered a solution that triggers moving on? The solution is them successfully fending off the enemies within their region of the city that they were assigned to protect. In this case, let's see, assigned to protect, actually we'll just say, which is the market district. So, you know, just to give it some fun, fanciful stuff, I set this one up as being like they were set to help guard like one of the streets within the market district. So there's a bunch of Snolls that are looting and ransacking the markets district, which makes it really fun because they can go up there, they can go into there, and there's all these shops that are kind of being ransacked. So it's easy enough for them to like just grab random items, like random weapons and stuff that have kind of been discarded and are kind of like, you know what, we're just defending the city, we can grab what we need. Give them all kinds of fun opportunities, right? There's a potion shop and they can get some fun potion, like single-use potion type stuff just for fun. Really, it's just meant to be sort of that cacophony of fun stuff for them to, they're level 1, they can start trying to play things and play around with things, and it makes it more fun than just, you know, the standard level 1 combat, which is like, I hit it with my sword, that's my turn. I hit it with my sword, that's my turn. Or if they're a magic user, I cast magic missile, that's my turn. I cast magic missile, that's my turn, right? It kind of offers the opportunity for them to do more despite only being level 1 in that situation. You know, and it's easier to do that when it's in the market district because you can just put all kinds of fun, goofy shops that give them fun, random items that can really impact combat in a lot of really fun, goofy ways. Or in like serious dark ways, I don't know. Depends on the tone the players want to set. But honestly, that's really all we need. And that's all we need when it comes to outlining our plot points. Like I say, getting to the nitty-gritty, putting in the details of all these things, that's when we go to the actual, you know, chapter outlines and stuff like that that are going on later, or that we outline later once we understand all these things. So there is a place for us to do more details, but right now this is all we need. This is all we need because we're just trying to make sure that as we continue writing, we understand at any point where our story should be heading. That one's really good. That one's all we need. So major plot point here. So this is again for the Snoll army. So again, going along, this is just reiterating things that have already happened. What is the next problem in the major storyline? So the problem here is we'll say, though the Snolls have been. This is one thing that I love about OneNote. Snolls, obviously a made-up word. Pretty sure Microsoft Office as a baseline doesn't even recognize Knoll as a word. Snoll, obviously a made-up word. I've used it enough and insisted upon this being the proper spelling enough that it has automatically added it to the spell check, and it no longer highlights that as a misspelled word. I love it. It knows all of my made-up words and it adds them to my personal dictionary. What a hero of a program. Anyway. So, though the Snolls have been repelled from the city, they have set up camp outside of the city walls and are laying siege to the city. Simple as that. That's all we need. That's what the problem is. That's what the problem is. We don't want to prescribe a solution at this point in time. We don't want to say, oh, and now players have to do this, right? Like, to a certain degree, like, to facilitate this, you know, we can add in NPCs that will say, like, okay, the king has recruited every able-bodied member, you know, including the players, to help, you know, go out and take the fight to the siege. Because if we just sit there and let the siege go on, we'll eventually die. We know that the Snoll army is stronger than ours, and we know we don't have backup. So if we just sit here and wait, they will outlast us. We need to go out and it's like a Hail Mary thing, right? So it's like you can kind of facilitate them going out and dealing with this by having the king, you know, or the king's guard or whatever, recruit all the people and say, like, you guys are going to be in charge of dealing with this part of the camps that are out there. You need to do your best to try and clear out these camps and stuff like that. So you can say that, like, that level of detail. But as far as like the plot point goes, it's just the problem is that they're being laid siege. Making ice cream bread, that sounds amazing. I don't know what that is, but it sounds amazing. All right, what is the beginning condition that starts this problem? So this one is begins after chapter 1 plot point when players have fended off the Snow army from the city streets. That's what begins it, right? That's what triggers that this one is ready to go and they can do stuff. That's all there is to it. And then what will be considered a solution that triggers moving on. So this one is when players have damaged the part of the Snow, the part of the Snow encampment. There we go. Encampments. They are assigned enough. The Snolls will retreat. Right, so it's like that's what the solution is for them to just have successfully fended them off. We're not saying how many they have to kill. We're not saying whether or not fending them off has to do with capturing or killing them. If they want to get more information, they can. Like if they want to try and capture and interrogate, they can. You know, and then within the chapter details, we'll probably plot some basic like enemy NPC, right, that are just kind of nameless creatures that if they capture someone, they're ready to go, and we can just kind of plop them in there and they give them information. But if they don't capture anyone, then they don't get that information, right? So it's like we kind of plan those things out, but that again, that's within the chapter outline section. That's like within the chapter page, not within this overarching outline. So really, that's all we need for that one. Chapter 3 here. So major plot point. So the major plot point here. So we're gonna do Snow army. We're still very much in the thick of all they really are aware of is the Snow army doing crap to them. That's here. Just delete that so the period isn't there because it would change up the formula that I've used. Because see, no period. If I did a period on that one, it would suddenly be weird and different, and my brain would notice it, and it would just be uncomfortable. And clearly, and you know that my brain would notice it, and that it'd be uncomfortable because I'm talking about it. I did notice it, and it did make me uncomfortable. These are the types of idiosyncrasies that I just have learned to deal with because it's too much work to try and break myself of these weird habits. You know, work with the brain you got. Anyway, so what is the next what is the next problem in the major storyline? Snolls. So we'll say the Snolls have retreated and will likely regroup again. The king has ordered the players to give chase to find where they are going and get info on the Snow army / encampments. Right, so that's the problem. The problem is like the king has ordered them okay, because and again, kind of motivation wise, we put more of these details in that chapter outline, and this is detail that does exist there, so I can, I've already mapped it out, so I can speak to it. Basically, what happens is the king calls them and he's like, "Look, I need you guys to go deal with this, because if we don't, they'll just come back and attack again." So. Randstorm Grip, hey, welcome again. Thank you for the raid. Welcome in, everybody. Pile in. We're working on outlining the campaign story arcs, the mission arcs for the campaign that I'm actively running right now. We've kind of got it planned out up to a certain point, but I'm working on going through and thoroughly plotting it out all the way up from the beginning to the end about what the major sort of plot points are going to be at any point. So pile in. Come on in. Some monster concepts. That's awesome. Yeah, we started off today with our usual. We designed a rune. We turned Ice Knife into a rune. It was really fun. Snazzy Cub, thank you for the follow. I appreciate that. Banana gremlins. That's so as someone who I work out a lot, and so I just make it a habit to make sure I eat fruit, and veggies every day, and one of my favorite fruits is banana. I don't like the idea of maybe my bananas hiding a gremlin in them or something. That's it's a concerning idea. So I appreciate the nightmare. It is close to Halloween, so I suppose it's seasonally appropriate. But thanks for that. That'll be fun the next time I peel one. So. Oh boy. But yeah, so we're working on plotting out our major story arc plot points here. So for chapter 3 here, it's the Snow Army. You know, again, this is the one where this is where my players presently are. They're in chapter 3 here, and then the rest of it is all stuff that, like, a few chapters forward I've got kind of planned out. But then beyond that, I know generally where I want the campaign to go, and I need to start adding more details. No problem, Randstorm. Thank you for stopping by. I appreciate it, and we always have a fun stream. We always have a fun stream when we're getting to spend time sitting here just being creative and doing stuff. Oh, bananas or gremlins are allergic. Oh, that's tragic. That's tragic, because bananas are awesome. So much good potassium right there. That's an unfortunate situation. I'm sorry to hear that. All right, so the major problem in this chapter is the Snows have retreated and will likely regroup again, and the players have been ordered to hunt them down and get information on them. That's the problem. It's up to them what information they get, how detailed of information they get, and how they go about it. Do they want to capture people and interrogate them? Do they want to just kill all of them and then search their camp for clues? You know, we'll make sure that we're prepared for to give them information they need for the next steps, the next progress in multiple different formats. So either they can find multiple clues that lead them to the same place to reinforce it, or they can at least find one clue that gives them the next place to go to, depending on their approach. Right? We give them resources. We don't give them prescribed solutions. Right? You wanna like I say, there's a problem, and then you give them resources to solve that problem, but you don't plan out how they have to solve that problem. If you eat 40,000 bananas in 10 minutes, you'll die of radiation. I think he'll die of other issues before that, but that's good to know. I think he'll probably die of a ruptured stomach beforehand, because that is a lot of banana to fill up a stomach. But, you know, there you go. So what is the beginning condition that starts this problem? So basically, this is what triggers this one to be here. This problem arises after the players have successfully fended off the Snow siege camp. That's what I'm trying to say. A siege camp outside the city. So as soon as they've fended off that siege that's set up outside of the city, that's what's obviously going to trigger this one, right? Because they're going to that, you know, as soon as they've, you know, as soon as they pick up camp and you know, turn tail and run, you know, that's when the chase is on. So that one's a pretty easy one to figure out. A note on that. So like when I talk about what is the beginning condition that starts this problem, for the main plot point that's going to like run them from beginning to end of the campaign, all those main storylines, it'll be kind of obvious and almost unnecessary to describe what condition starts the next problem, right? Because it's like, it's pretty much always going to be, did they solve the previous problem? If so, that has led them to discovering a new problem. The only time that's going to be different is if, you know, like coming up, we give them, you know, like 3 locations, right, that can all lead to different places. So it's like really the condition is that they've done what they needed to do in chapter 4, even though we're up to chapter 7, right? It's like that's the condition that triggers it. And, you know, we'll see some examples of that. But really where that comes in handy is if you want to break up side quests, or if you want to have multiple important story plots that will come and go as things happen, right? Or if you want them to be able to pursue one story independent of another one, right? So it's like, suppose they go after one of those side stories, you know, and they're using that side story to progress themselves to a certain point, but they still haven't satisfied everything they need for the main issue, right? They'll have to go back and find other issues to move forward and do it. Or if there's like, you know, a delay, so suppose that there's going to be a side story that like that is present in there from levels 1 to 4, but then there's going to be some, like, for whatever reason you want there to be some downtime until like they're level 7, and then they can start finding more information about that one, or the next plot point for that side quest comes up, then you can reference back to chapter 4 and be like, okay, you got to reference back to there. That's what triggers this one, and so this, that, and the other place. So as a baseline, it's not really necessary, because for the most part, the plot points are linear, even if the locations aren't. Like I was saying, you can have the plot points be separate from the locations, and that's a sneaky way to give players a sandbox effect without actually having to redesign dungeons based on them going in like the wrong order, right? So because of that, the plot points will largely be linear, but it's still important to point that out in case there's going to be some sort of non-linear approach to things, which is, always a perfectly good option, and can be kind of a challenge to figure out if you approach DMing like I do, where you plan everything out, all the plot points out ahead of time, rather than kind of letting the plot points develop as the players take action, right? Both perfectly good ways to DM, but I take the plan ahead approach. The plan ahead and write an entire campaign module at once approach. That's just, as a world builder, that's what I like to do the most, because I like to build a world for players to play in, as opposed to let the world be built around what the players are doing. They can both be awesome gameplay approaches, but I know the way that I like to do it, which is also the way that I'm the best at doing it. I'm really bad at trying to plan things as we go, because I can't stay focused on a plot point if I'm just constantly reacting to what players are doing. I let myself kind of be led by the players too much, and there's not a consistent, cohesive storyline if I don't plan it all out ahead of time. But that's just me and how I approach things. But at any rate, all those caveats and grains of salt aside. So what will be considered a solution that triggers moving on? While here, the players will need to learn some information. They need to learn that there are 2 other main Snoll encampments. So now here's an important thing too. Encampments here. Suppose the players kill off all the Snolls, say, great, job well done, and leave before they collect any recon by looting and finding the important maps that are planned out. So then not only did they not interrogate the Snolls, but they also didn't loot and ransack it. What do we do? What do we do about that? How do we handle that? Because they haven't gotten the information. That's where the sandboxy feel of it can kind of come into play too. It can kind of irritate players to a certain degree, but at the same time, it'll make the world feel open, and it'll make it feel like, oh, I like this world is dependent on our actions. And you just basically, they go back if they haven't found any information, the king will ask them, like, have you found any information? Did you find any information about this, that, or the other thing? They can say no, and then it's like either they have to go back, or then you can rewrite and throw in another NPC that can give them information, right? But if you leave the job up to them, right? And if the king says, we need to understand all of, I need you to get information about these guys. So it's like the king says he wants information on Snoll army and encampments. They know that's what they're looking for. And if they don't find it, they can go back there, or they can pursue a different storyline that may eventually lead to like a subsequent bit of information, or they'll have to go back, right? And that's an open world thing. If you don't do what you're supposed to do, like if you don't solve the problem, right? The problem is that they don't have information. They don't know where the Snolls are. And so if they don't solve the problem, then, you got to go back until you solve the problem. This one is probably one of the worst plot points that I've come up with, just because this is the most easily, this is the problem that so far is the easiest for them to not know what any solution could be, right? Because it's almost too vague. The problem is almost too vague, right? So in this situation, the only reason I'm keeping it like this, frankly, I would prefer to rewrite it, but the reason I'm keeping it like this is that they're already doing it. My players are already doing it, so it's like we're just going to keep it that way, and I can edit it for future uses of this campaign if I want to. No apologies, man. That's totally fine. I understand. Sometimes you got to go. I appreciate you stopping by and hanging out for the time that you did hang out. But yeah, so this isn't my favorite plot point. I wish I had come up with something better. But the fact is I didn't, and my players are working with it. And the good news is my players, they have largely caught on to what they're supposed to do, and they are doing a pretty good job of dealing with things, because they actually did initially start off doing recon, and they found that there were maps, but they were unable to get close to those maps because there were too many of the Snolls around. So now they are approaching this from okay, we either need to kill all these Snolls so we can get this information, or we need to somehow sneak in and steal this information. So by searching, they chose to be stealthy about it. And because I didn't require one solution or another, and I just provided information, they successfully managed to sneak around using some of the different back paths that I, put into the map so they could have different approaches, whether they wanted to do a full frontal assault or do a stealthy, sneaky type of thing. It was always up to them. And so because they chose the stealthy sneaky, they actually kind of found out that there's more information. And so they don't have the information, but they know where to get that information. So I kind of lucked out and the players kind of fell into it. But in reality, I figure this could be written better. This could be written better. But it is what it is. Didn't find anything better. You damn right you didn't. Boom, best stream right here. Bada bing, bada boom. There, I said it. I'll let my arrogance and hubris take over. Oh boy. All right, so that's basically all that we need for this one. So now here's where things can kind of get. Here's where we can start showing, like I say, the benefits of separating the plot points from locations, right? So we have. Well, here the players will need to learn some information. They need to learn that there are 2 other main Snoll encampments, right? So we have Snoll Army here, and then Chapter 5 plot point, Snoll Army. And again, I need to get rid of that period because it would bother me if there was only one of them that had it there. If I gotta format it all so that it all is consistent and makes sense. Otherwise, it just doesn't sit right with me, and I don't like it. I know my brain, and I know the ways in which I give myself tics. Creepy art for the old god. If you go to the subreddit are creepy and you look at images, there are a whole lot of images that can at least give you some inspiration on further things to look into. I do that all the time when I need to come up with a cool, creepy image of a setting or something like that. That's a really good way to do it. And I find that if you search, because people have made subreddits about anything, and so people will have curated, if you have a certain type of creepy in mind, I bet you can find information. You can find all kinds of different image collections that they've curated. That's one of the best things, is just to go there and see what people have come up with, and you can get some really good inspiration. I do that all the time. But yeah, so we have pointed out here there are 2 other main Snoll encampments. So Chapter 4 and Chapter 5. So now here's where, like I say, separating plot points from locations is important. The only information they're going to get is there's a map that there are 2 locations marked on. And that's it. They can choose which one to go to. Regardless of which one they go to, Chapter 4 is going to be the next plot point, because all I'm describing is a problem. I'm not describing a location. I'm not saying they have to go to this place and solve this thing, because if I want to give them 2 locations, they might choose to go to the other location first. So all we say is, plot point is there's one Snoll encampment where there's this type of thing that they can find, and there's one Snoll encampment where they can find this type of information. We don't say which city they're in, so they can go to whichever city they want to first, and then that's the one where Chapter 4 is, right? And then the next one they go to that's the one where Chapter 5 is. And this is where things can get really fun too, because then we can start mixing things up. Suppose at Chapter 4 they find 3 other locations marked on a map or something like that. Then suddenly they have 4 locations to go to. The 3 they found here and this one that's still there. So they've got 4 locations. No matter what direction they go to, it can be one of the new cities that they just found marked on a map, or they can go to that other first city. No matter what, Chapter 5 plot point is the next one, right? You set those things up, and that creates this sandbox feel where they can feel like they can go anywhere they want to in the world, and it doesn't mess up the plot points that you've planned out as a DM. It's a little sneaky and a little underhanded, but god damn it, you got to do what you got to do, because we don't have infinite time to just sit here. I wish I got paid to just sit here and write specific campaigns for one group for one session. Unfortunately, that does not pay the bills, so I have limited time in my life. All right, let's see. What's your idea? Bit of Maiden Mother Crone called Pope Noir. Takes the form of peasant soldier king. Interesting. That's a lot of just some interesting ideas. Yeah, I would start looking. So subreddits are good for getting inspiration, but if you already have an idea, start doing like creepy and then one of those buzzwords, right? Creepy king, creepy pope, or whatever, right? And see what kind of images people have created, whether it's like edited photos or paintings or whatever. Just do like creepy and then one or two of those buzzwords and see if you can find something. And if you find something close, see if you can find who created it and see if they've created anything else similar, right? If it's an art style that you like and you want to do that, see if they've made anything similar. Those are some of the tricks that I found to find things. As far as needing art, definitely I can't help you. My artistry comes in the form of writing or music. I have a decent amount of talent for music and instruments and stuff like that, but for drawing and artwork, nothing. Elden Ring fan art, just in general, FromSoft game artwork is excellent. They do a very good job of doing creepy stuff like that. Their creepy artwork is just up there for sure. That's a good suggestion. But yeah, so at any rate, Chapter 4 and Chapter 5, they both stem from here, and this is where we're going to say, like, in theory, they're considered a solution that triggers moving on, right? Or the beginning condition that starts this problem. In truth, like, so for this one, we'll make a note. We'll say, functionally, all they need to have done is finish this thing here at Chapter 3, but we can also put a note, we can also put a note, have this be the second one with Chapter 4 being the first one, right? You can kind of do stuff like that. To make sure it's there. But notice how, even though we're creating a roadmap that is non-linear and branches, and they can take the branches in any direction they want, we have still managed to create a linear progression of our dungeons and of our plot points. So we can still have a linear story without it being a linear roadmap, right? And that's how you can let players have that sort of sandboxy feel, while still keeping, the plot line as a more linear, easier to plan story. Because it can be very difficult to plan a story if you're trying to figure out how to let players find plot points in different orders, right? Like even if you wanted to make it so that it's like, these two are interchangeable story-wise, like, in theory, Chapter 4 and Chapter 5 can be interchangeable story-wise. And we might even do that. We might even be what they discover at the dungeon is it can be one way or another. So we can even tie that information to one dungeon or another. But that's just where you say, like, oh, in this treasure chest, there's this map as opposed to this key or whatever, right? You can change those things. You can have those things even be more sandboxy. But you want to be able to make the dungeons linear. So that way, if they choose to go to, the Chapter 6 place first, if you try to put 3 items that don't need to be found linearly, right, like in such a way that they don't approach them linearly, they can be lower level, like level 4, going into a place that you've designed for level 6, and they can be in really big trouble. And that can kind of disrupt it, and that does one of two things. One, that either forces you to railroad them and say, no, you have to go to the Chapter 4, the level 4 area first, even though you've been given information about something over here in level 6, or you have to rewrite this one, right? But if you detach the plot points from the location, then it doesn't matter what Chapter 6 plot point is, right? Or rather, it doesn't matter what location they go to. Chapter 6 plot point happens when it's supposed to happen. So, I don't know. I feel like I'm kind of talking in circles. I'm just trying to make sure I explain it in multiple ways, because it's a really important and helpful concept that took me a long time to tap into. And if I can help make sure that I'm being clear about it, and explaining it, then hopefully that'll save a lot of other people some time, so that they don't have to spend as many years being not a good DM like I did. I would still argue that I'm a mediocre DM in general, but my players are having fun, so I'm like, all right, I'll keep doing what I'm doing. But it is what it is. So at any rate, what is the next problem in the major storyline? So this one is going to be, there is something important that the Snolls have noted on a map. And even what we can say here is we can actually do something like have noted on the map with a label. You can even say a label. I'm not even going to say that. Noted on. There's something important that the Snolls have noted on a map, indicating that they have important numbers or resources. This must be investigated, right? So that's the problem. Like, this place needs investigation. They can go there, they can approach it however they want. They can kill everything, or or just find everything. It doesn't matter. In fact, what I think I want to do, I think what I'm going to do here, there are 2 other main Snoll encampments. I'm going to put a little extra thing here because it's not too late for me to feed them a bit more information too, because they're still hunting their information, with notes about notes about these locations housing important Snoll artifacts. And so we can put this one here. There's something important there, so we can just say there's an important artifact. Is an important artifact that the Snolls have noted on a map, indicating that we'll just say that have noted on a map. There we go. This must be investigated, and if it's an important item to the Snolls, it should be... See, even this, I'm hesitating, because I was going to say it should be stolen or destroyed. That's a solution, and I don't want to do that. We're just going to say, the problem is there's an important artifact that the Snolls have noted on the map, with notes that it is a source of strength, we can say, actually, because that's more to the point. Because what's happening with the Snolls, just to give some background information, one thing that I know that's happening with the Snolls is their race, and kind of like what's part of the general notes over here, up in here, is they have, so the elementals being like the superior enemies here that are using the Snolls as sort of like a resource, as a tool for their own designs, right? So it's like the elementals want to kill off all life. They're using the Snolls as an intermediate to do a lot of the dirty work, so that way then they can just like take care of the Snolls. And the way they've done that is they've managed to convince the Snolls that they, the elementals, are gods, and that the mission of taking over this area, like slowly taking over this part of the world, is like a task ordained by God. And the elementals have given them artifacts that are the source of like magical radiation, which is like causing these magical mutations, which make the Snolls stronger and more aggressive, right? So as far as the Snolls are concerned, they have been given gifts that are actually having tangible effects of making them stronger and more powerful and better at war, right? So it's like, not only do they have a task from their gods, but they also have gifts from their gods to do that task, right? And so the idea is that the nodes on the map are going to be sources of these artifacts. Ultimately, what these artifacts are, this relates to what I was talking about with that other sort of like side mission that's actually the more overarching issue, but is not the main concern of the players, because they have a more narrow perspective on things as players that are just trying to keep their city alive. They're not as concerned with worldly affairs until they learn about it. Then it's up to the players whether their characters are concerned about that or not. But ultimately, so these artifacts are pieces of the realm Pandemonium, which the overarching issue is that a rift in between the material plane, the mortal realm, and the realm of Pandemonium is large enough that the two realms are starting to invert, which is a really destructive process. It's slow moving, but it's a destructive process that will, if unchecked, eventually consume the entire, realms, both realms, and ultimately swap, force an inversion of the two realms, which is, when it's done, it's done. It's like, okay, the two realms have just kind of switched places, but the realms are what they are. But in the process, everything kind of gets ripped apart. So that's like the overarching issue that's happening. and the items are pieces of pandemonium, and because they're displaced pieces of a realm, it's causing all this like magical energy radiation coming off of the items. And it's like the Snolls using those items, they like they use those items to like worship, and by doing that they think that like worshiping the items, the gods are gifting them with strength. It's just magical radiation kind of turning them into like bane creatures and stuff like that. So that's like what's happening. And so these artifacts, if destroyed, will stop the Snoll army. If like used properly, can be used to invert the process. So it's part of this other overarching issue, but ultimately these are the sources of strength of the Snoll army. So if they can be destroyed and everything like that, it can help solve this issue. And that's like kind of where these main plot points are coming from, and that's like the information that the players will be learning as they go. Oh, you made a character that goes fast, like 3/4 the speed of sound fast. That's real fast. That's real fast. That's for sure. So that's kind of what I want to present here, and so it's like the solution here. I'm gonna learn some information. So I'm gonna kind of rewrite this a little bit just to make it a bit simpler and more clear. Players will learn that Snolls use artifacts, like a vacuum cleaner, but it's old. Artifacts. The players will learn that Snolls use artifacts to gain strength, and will see where 2 more of these artifacts are housed. Boom. There we go. So that's kind of like the solution there. So, okay, oops, hold on. I'll catch up on this. Let's see here. Okay, Rakdos, Cult Speeds, Classifier, Text Spell, Long Stride, Haste, Glyph Warding, Items Bag Holding, Speed. You can get those. Haste Speed, 30 feet, plus Long Striders, 10, plus 10. Speed. That's speed. 188 feet. That's an impressive and specific use of stuff, and it's, you know what, if you can find a way to use that to effect, that's impressive. Well done. All right, so let's see here. So for chapter 4, we'll say we'll say a Snoll artifact is housed here. Here, and is the source of power for the Snolls. We'll say, yeah, and that's really what the problem is. The artifact is there as the source of power for the Snolls, right? So what is the beginning condition that starts this problem? We'll just say players must have found the location at the location through information found in chapter 3, right? So that's where they get that information. That's really the key to it here. And then this one, and then chapter 5 will just be one where it's like, well, it's that same thing, but it'll also be sequentially this dungeon comes after chapter 4 for leveling concerns and all that kind of stuff. Marvel Memes, thank you for the follow. I appreciate that. Glad you're having a good time. Better's only used for their action search. All right, let's see here. So we got that, and so what will be considered a solution that triggers moving on? If the artifact is no longer under the control of the Snolls, it's no longer under the control of the Snolls. Players will also gain information about another plot point, right? So I'm talking about you can set up and have multiple plot points. You can have them staggered, right? So they can find next plot points in more locations before they've even done this one, and it doesn't matter which location they go to next. This is the next one that they do. So you have an amazing day as well. Thank you for stopping by. So yeah, so we can just kind of do stuff like that. And so same with this one. So this one is going to largely be the same thing. Well, artifact is housed here. Source of power for the Snolls. Copy, and we can sort of paste this. So boom, there we go. So there's that problem that they need to solve right there. So as you can see, we're kind of building the problems. So now one thing that can be kind of helpful too, right, to sort of make sure we're setting these things up properly. And as you can see too, as I'm writing this, it's a messy, disjointed process. This is where the templates come in handy, right? So you can see that I'm using this template. It's a template of my own design. I can fill in the information that I know and am ready to fill in at any given time. And because I have this template that says like, oh, that reminds me, oh, I still need to fill in this bit of information, all these bits of information, I can move on without worrying about forgetting about things, right? And so I'm feeling the need to do that because I don't necessarily want to find the solution for these things, right? Because I've already kind of planned that these are the problems that there are going to be. They essentially need to be spending time weakening the Snoll army here to eventually deal with it. But the other thing that I need to start thinking about too is having some of these plot points be ones that lead to understanding these elementals, and I need to start weaving in hints and more stuff that like explicitly outlines the elementals as an issue, as a problem in here. So what I want to do is I want to move ahead and I want to plan out a couple other plot points here. And so chapter 9, I want like maybe sometime around here, and we can always edit and change these things a little bit. Sometime around maybe chapter 9, I want there to be major plot point. I want this to go to Elemental Army. And I want the problem of this storyline to be an unknown. Okay, hold on. Let me actually try to spell properly. An unknown ally to the Snolls appears to be housed here. This could be a bigger threat and needs to be investigated, right? So like that's what the problem here is. The problem here is that like, oh, there's an even bigger threat at this location, right? And so we're gonna say housed here, and it's gonna be like it's going to be a dungeon that's, again, not necessarily tied to a specific location. So depending on when players want to go investigate these types of things, or depending on when they want to go to any given location, then, it doesn't matter. We'll still make sure we're leveled up properly. Okay, give me too long, didn't read. We're continuing to plot things out. I don't know, man. Go back and watch the replay. So yeah, this could be a bigger threat and needs to be investigated. So like that's when I want to start weaving in the elemental army types of type of plot point, because eventually that's what the like final thing is going to be here. So chapter 20, the major plot point, we're going to go ahead and say we can actually do that elemental army, and we can say what is the problem, like what's the major problem of this storyline. We'll say elemental big bad needs to be defeated. Deflated. It's a balloon. It's an elemental balloon. It's an air elemental, a balloon. It's not the balloon itself. It's housed in the balloon. No, okay, it needs to be defeated. Right? So it's like I know eventually we're leading to this. I don't even necessarily know exactly what form I want that big bad to be in. I just know that that's where it's going, right? So it's like this is what I mean when I say I know where I eventually want this campaign to end, but I have yet to really map out all of the steps and all that kind of stuff. In these ones, and really I can kind of almost change up what I want to describe. And so what we can say here is, so for like these ones here, at this point in time, it's all the elemental army stuff here. We're going to do elemental army, and just to save myself a little bit of time and effort here, copy, paste that one there and paste that one there, because what I want to do kind of towards the end is I want it to be I want there to be a like it's known that there's some sort of puppet master for everything, someone that's at the very tippy top of everything. And what I want to do for like these last chapters, it's going to be just sort of like an effort to figure out where they are. And so basically what I'm going to do is, the problem is, let's see here. They need, whoa, whoops, hold on. That deleted way more than I wanted it to. Oh, I see what big of a deal. Be big could be, it could be. I don't think I'm going to go that route with it. I don't think that's what I'm going to do. But it could be. It could be anything we want it to be. That's the beauty of homebrew. Okay, so what is the next problem in the major storyline? So in this one, it's going to be, there is some sort of ultimate puppet master that needs to be identified, right? And so that's what it's going to be. And so it's like basically all of these areas are going to house some sort of clue to that, right? And this can be kind of a fun way to it kind of turns into a Legend of Zelda-esque thing, right? Where it's like you need to take care of 3 steps to do it. And again, notice how I'm not saying, oh, it's going to happen at this location. For these plot points, I will never say it needs to happen at this location. Instead, what I'll do is I'll make sure there are mapped out X number of locations, and there might be some of them that have to have like specific stuff. Like the Big Bad will probably have one specific location on the map that'll be like some sort of like, that's where their ultimate like castle is or whatever like that. So those types of things that are a bit more concrete, like this is the last step, you can put that one in a specific location. But like these 3 things, in theory, like if there are 3 clues housed in 3 different areas, they could in theory happen in any order. They could go to the chapter 19 one, even though they're only level 17 and ready for chapter 17, right? So they could in theory do that. That's why these plot points these storyline plot points don't explicitly coincide to a map point, because all we'll have at this point in time is 3 locations on a map and 3 plot points. Whichever location they go to first, that's the one that has chapter 17. Whichever one they go to second, that's the one that has chapter 18. Whichever one they go to third, that's the one that has chapter 19. That lets them have that open world type of thing, and lets them kind of, it's fun because you can let them kind of like puzzle through and try to riddle through. Like they can think like, oh, this one seems like it's going to be the most important one, and you can just kind of like play along with that, right? And you can like just kind of be like, yeah, no, like you can almost even give like NPCs dropping lines or something like that seems to confirm that they've made the right decision about where to go first or where to save for last and stuff like that. And it doesn't matter, because no matter what, they're going to run into the same dungeon, right? You make the dungeon, like you don't tie the dungeon to the location on the map per se, right? So it's like there's 3 abandoned cities that they can go to. Any of those abandoned cities could have a temple. Any of those abandoned cities could have a castle. Any of those abandoned cities could have like some sort of underground sewer system. I don't know. Any of those could have those 3 locations. So it doesn't matter which one they go to. That dungeon that they're going to, if the first dungeon is a castle, it just so happens that city, they find themselves at the castle because all of the traces of the enemies that they're looking for lead to the castle. And that's just kind of how things progress, right? That's kind of the sneaky way to let there be an open world without having to worry about rewriting dungeons based on what order they go to. You can have it all planned out at the proper level because you just give them the proper level dungeon at the map location that they need. So those are the basic problems that they have to face. And we're gonna keep going. I want to see if we can't maybe just like get the gist of all of the plot points mapped out before I'm done today. But I need to run to the bathroom again because I'm someone who works hard to stay hydrated. So I'm just gonna run a quick ad break, and hopefully that'll be good to carry us the rest of the writing session here without commercials for you guys too. But hopefully, 2 birds, 1 stone there. But sit tight for me. I'll be right back in like a minute or 2, and when I come back, we will hopefully finish at least outlining our major plot points for our major storyline. So I appreciate your patience. I'll be back very shortly.
It's color by the foot with crazy fruity colors all on one roll. First is wacky yellow. Yellow that's more fun than yellow ducks limboing in yellow polka dot pajamas. Yeah, wow! There's fruity red. Red that's crazier than my red-headed aunt in red stretch pants on a red pogo stick. Then weird green. Green that's freakier than a green Martian with a green toupee. With all the fruity colors that keep coming and coming and coming, I'll run out of time before I run out of foot. New color by the foot. It's foot after foot after foot of colorful fun.
From Walt Disney Pictures.
Professor Wayne Selinsky's shrinking machine accidentally has gone out of control.
What happened?
Honey, I shrunk the kids. I threw them out with the trash. They're in the backyard.
Now they're battling for survival in the adventure of a lifetime.
Scorpion! Please! Hold on!
Rick Moranis stars in Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. Rated PG.
Starts tomorrow at a theater near you.
We've made living biological attractions so astounding that they'll capture the imagination of the entire planet.
The most phenomenal discovery of our time.
Welcome to Jurassic Park.
Becomes the greatest adventure of all time.
Can I touch it?
Universal Pictures presents a Steven Spielberg film. Jurassic Park. Rated PG-13. Starts Friday, June 11th.
You're not gonna believe this. It's called Sound Bites, and it makes sound and music inside your head.
No way!
Yes way. Try it. Only Sound Bites send sound into a candy pop from your teeth to your ears.
This is better than winning the Super Bowl.
No way! Let me try it. Wow, this is amazing.
Sound Bites, simulated sounds. You gotta try it to believe it.
Eyes of justice are watching. It's Batman.
Two-Face is on a firing frenzy.
Charging into.
Appreciate the patience. Retro ads are so weird. I know, I love them. Oh, I miss old commercials. Modern day commercials are so annoying because modern day commercials are all just like trying to psychologically trick me into one of two things. They're like trying to trick me into purchasing an item, or they're trying to trick me into believing that the major corporation is somehow some like awesome altruistic thing that's out for anything other than just getting my money from me. I like old commercials. Old commercials were just like, hey, here's something to catch your attention. Buy our stuff. There's no trickery involved. They're not trying to manipulate my emotions. They're just trying to be like, whoa, look over here, buy this product. I miss old ads. Such a beautiful time to be alive. Those are all commercials from my childhood, and they're so good. They're so good. I love them so much. I love them so much. I'm almost jealous that you guys get to sit here and watch those types of things rather than, you know, while I have to go to the bathroom. I wish I could take those ads with me to the bathroom. Like if there was gonna be, you know how like gas pumps now have commercials on them too? It's the weirdest freaking thing. They have like commercials on gas pumps now. If they had like retro style commercials on the gas pumps, I'd be into it. I'd sit there and I'd pump extra gas just so I could keep watching. Like good lord, I'd get a gas canister so I could fill that up. But no, that's not how they do it nowadays. Nowadays everything's got to be some sort of like sneaky stealth approach to convincing me to buy the item. It's like, man, don't try to trick me. Just tell me what the product is and make me care about it, and that's it. Like not even make me care about the product. Just make me have a good time while I'm watching your ad. And then the next time I'm hungry for a snack, I'll be like, oh yeah, fruit roll-ups. Those are fun. And then get those just because they had like a really wacky commercial going on. Like the Gushers where the kids' heads turned to fruit. Obviously, I don't believe that. They're not trying to trick me into anything. But god damn it, it was fun to look at. And god damn it, it made me think of Gushers when my mom was like, what kind of snacks do you want from the store? Fuck yeah, Gushers. Because they were tasty. Gushers still are tasty. They don't make as many flavors as they used to, though. It's disappointing. Times change, and I don't like it. Anyways, okay, so we've got like... So we have some of these later ones kind of figured out. Gonna do all of that stuff, and I wanted to maybe around like chapter 13 or 14, I wanted those to be, what are Gushers? Oh, sweet summer child. They're like a fruit snack, but inside, so it's like a fruit snack on the outside, like a gummy, chewy fruit snack, and on the inside is like a more juice liquid gel type of thing. So it's like if you had a fruit snack filled with jelly, and they were just like, I'm pretty sure they had to have been like 70% sugar. So good. Oh, they're so good. I love them. Still do love them. I'll absolutely eat them. And they're like that really sticky type of fruit snack too that like sticks to your teeth for an hour afterwards. So you keep tasting it for many minutes after you're actually done eating it. Oh, so amazing. So amazing. I'm like single-handedly destroyed many children's teeth. So good. So good, man. Oh, boy. Oh, they're good. They're good. You should get yourself a package of Gushers at some point in time and just try them. They're so good. So awesome, I think you mean. Oh, they're so good. They're so good. It's amazing. All right, let's see here. Major plus. So somewhere around here. That's right. Somewhere around here, I wanted to put the the final conflict with like the Snoll big bad. And I'm trying to think about. Let's see here. We have up through chapter 5 kind of planned out where like that's where they have to find those artifacts, and I kind of want these ones to be where did we put it? Was chapter 9 where they're gonna start finding sort of information about. Okay, so what I want to do here is got through chapter 5. Okay, so here's what I want to do for these ones. For 6, 7, and 8, what I want to do here is important Snoll official is in hiding and has information about who pulls the strings with the who pulls the strings, and we're gonna say elementals, right? So here's where we're gonna start dipping in clues. For these 3, we're gonna give them 3 important Snolls that they have to deal with here. I want to do that, and then I want to do that right there about who pulls the strings with the elementals. And so then this one, an unknown ally to the Snolls appears to be housed here. Could be a bigger threat and needs to be investigated, right? So this is where they an unknown ally. So we're going to say low-ranking elemental, and actually I'm going to say elemental / elemental artifact is what I want to do here. And so then what I think I want to do is, so there's another kind of thing that relates to these that I have kind of planned for this area, and it comes into play because I wanted to start making things also where it's like around in this area, like part of all of this stuff is that they're going to need something beyond just their powers to access the elementals. Like they have a stronghold that they need help accessing to, and there's another faction that lives in this area, and that's this like a centaur society that kind of lives outside of all this thing, but they can go to like recruit that. Can I name one? I don't know what that word is. I have no idea what you're asking me. I'm sorry, I don't know what you're getting at there. I would if I understood. But it's going right over my head. I don't know what you're talking about. Okay, so what I want to do, I'm trying to think, and I might even need to disperse some of these things and mix things up, and we can always do that a little bit. But I want to do so an unknown ally. So the major plot point here, I'm gonna put this as elemental army here. So the problem is I think what I want to do here is we're going to say a unique artifact / form of magic is needed to access elemental strongholds, and the it is needed to access elemental unique artifact / form of magic is needed to access elemental strongholds, and the centaurs that live in the Shadowwood Forest are the keepers of this magic. Put it in Google Translate, it will pronounce it. I am not going to do that on stream. That is a risky move, and it doesn't matter how much I trust you, I will not be doing that. Alright, so I want to do that, and then so this next one will obviously quid pro quo. We'll say the centaurs will only help if one of their artifacts lost to the unhinging, right? That was the cataclysmic event of this world. One of their artifacts lost to the unhinging is recovered for them. We're gonna put so this is one thing that will be location specific. So it'll be it's location specific, but that's okay because there's like a single linear path that leads to this one. Like all of the forks will eventually lead to this pathway, and then further forks will branch from this pathway. This means unusable. So can I name one unusable thing then? I still don't really understand what you're getting at here. I'm sorry. I don't know what's not connecting in my brain, but I'm not getting it. My brain is too simple to understand what you're asking of me. The centaurs will only help if one of their artifacts lost to the unhinging is recovered for them, and we're gonna say located on an island, and the centaurs are not able to navigate the waters of the ice float sea, which is like the sea, the coastline that this whole region, like it's the coastline of this whole region. It's like this icy sea that has the icy sea that just has all kinds of glaciers and stuff, or icebergs, I should say, that kind of float all along it. So name one of the 3 important snow. Oh, I see what you're saying. You want one of the snows to be named that. That's a proper name that you're giving me. I got it. It's clicking now. The snows have a specific naming convention that they use within my world. They follow. They have their own naming conventions, and that one wouldn't really fit the naming conventions, but I'm sure I'll keep a note of it, and I'm sure I can find some place where a character can have that name. It would be kind of fun to have that sort of hidden unusable name. That we could use that one for like a red herring type of character that like is meant to mislead the players or something. An orphan, like, I mean, there's plenty of orphans that exist in there. But yeah, I don't know where that name would fit. I'm not saying no, I won't use it. I'm saying I need to think about where that would fit. I need to think about where that would fit without disrupting the sort of themes, because my world is one that I've been working on for like 10 years. So there's a lot of very defined states of how everything are. And so things need to be fit in proper places, or at least have a proper reason for why they don't fit within the location that they are, why they stand out, for it to not disrupt the whole vibe that the world has. Because that's just one of my things too. Is it's like it's really important for things to sort of fit the conventions of the world, right? I like my world to be a cohesive, sensical place, right? I don't like everything to be too, random and incohesive. Because I was a world builder long before I got into D&D. So like this world that I'm working on is my baby. I've been working on it for over a decade of my life, just adding details and turning it into my own personal fantasy world. So I do, sometimes to a fault, I'm very careful about what titles go where. But I will keep that one in mind. I think it's a cool idea. It can be, like I say, it could be really fun to sort of have that be a hidden meaning for like a character that's a red herring or something like that. That sounds like it would be kind of a fun way to do it. But okay, so so the centaurs are only going to help if they can find that information, all that kind of stuff like that. So that all kind of stems there, and it's kind of a side track, a distraction here. And so if we're going to have, let's see, where did I put? I think what I'm going to do then, okay, so we've got that. So I think what I want to do here then is, so when we've got those, is we'll say the Snolls have one last ditch effort and have built an army of elemental. This is an idea that I had, and I'm going to go ahead and just commit to it right here. So the Snolls have one last ditch effort, and they built an army of elemental slash Snoll hybrids, and are amassing a new army. So the problem there is they have to take care of, they have to, so we'll say the army has to be thinned or diverted from attacking Rhodanos, because that's what all this stems from. They're trying to keep their city of Rhodanos alive. So there's one last ditch effort right there. And then we'll go ahead and for this one, we'll say, the major storyline, we'll say, what we can say here is a small elemental army is backing up the hybrid Snoll army and needs to be thinned or diverted, right? And we can do that. It could also work for red herring. All right, good to know. All kinds of cool ideas. I love it. And then the chapter 14, and we'll put this last one here, is we'll say the final Snoll army slash king slash kingpin needs to be killed, right? So they need to do that. And then okay, and it was chapter 17, we have like the ultimate puppet master needs to be identified there. So the next problem in the storyline here, so we've got 2 more plot points to kind of put in here, and we're just trying to put in like our most basic plot holders, and we'll refine all these points and add all of the other details that we need moving forward. But as soon as we have sort of these basic big steps figured out, we can start really getting into the details here. But having the roughest storyboard planned out is super helpful. And the other thing about it too is always, I always remind myself, and this is why I'm kind of flippantly just writing down what I think of, anything can be changed at any point in time, right? None of this stuff, I'm not writing in pen. I'm typing in a Word document or in a OneNote document that I can change as many times as I want. So I can just I can change anything that I want. So it makes it easier to just kind of throw down whatever ideas I have, because any of it can change at any point. And so what I'm thinking here is they need to identify, it needs to be identified. And I'm going to add one little bit here, and one clue is here, right? So we're going to do that. And we'll just go ahead and copy that, and we'll just paste that there. And then again, paste that there just to make sure that's kind of clear, that that's what needs to happen there. So they're trying to find clues about who's doing that. And so what I want to do here, so the Snoll Army Kingpin needs to be found. So problem here is that upon... so that's one of the few things where we'll say, like, okay, like it's pretty clear what needs to happen. And it's a little railroad. You need to kill this Snoll King, right? Like this is the final nail in the coffin. You guys need to take care of this. But we can say, upon defeating the Snolls, a new clue to a mystery location is found. This location is the location of the sort of like penultimate. I think what I want to do for this is, and this is going to really relate to the one plot point of Healing the Land, which is like, again, that overarching one that isn't actually the main focus of the players, but is the underlying issue behind all these armies even existing in the first place. This location is the location of that's a clunky way to say that, is that of the I'm not going to use the word penultimate. We're going to use that of the major rift that is the source of inversion with pandemonium must be investigated and understood, right? And so that's like really all it's going to be. And then what I want to do here, chapter 16, because one idea that I had that I really want to do because I think it would be an awesome dungeon. It's not actually solving, it's not like actually making progress in any of them, but rather what I want this to be is players have become trapped in the inversion tear and must find a way out. So it's like they go investigate that, and they can find information about what that means, and we can plant information about sort of who this leader is and how they can go, like where they need to go to find out where this guy is and all that kind of stuff, right? That you can kind of do all these different things that they find here, but then it's like they realize they're trapped and they have to find a way out. And the thought that I have is like the source of inversion is just this cacophony of insane interplanar links and everything that's just like woven in a huge knot. And there will be plot points, and this can be sort of like the final plot point for like healing the land, so to speak, because like the idea is if they can close off that realm, that tear, if they can close that, that will essentially start reversing, or if they reduce it, that'll start reversing or at least cutting off the inversion that's happening, and so they can essentially end the ultimate downfall of the mortal realm is essentially it. And so they can do that, but that won't impact this because this army and these elementals are already transferred, right? So it's like if they close this off, they can kind of solve the heal the lands issue, but it doesn't undo everything that's already been done, is the idea. So and that's why I'm kind of thinking to add that right there, so it can in many ways feel like a final solution. And it would be interesting too if they kind of, depending on how aware they are of those issues, if they've figured out from the clues that we've dropped in the investigations they've done that this is the underlying issue to what's happening with the elementals, it would be kind of a fun way if they figured out how to get out, and if they make it out of there and even find a way to close that off and do that, and they think everything's done, and they think they've, you can almost set it up to be like this like, here's our red herring, right? Our false ending of they think they've done it. And then as they're returning to, as they, exit, they suddenly, like, you slap them in the face with, oh no, there's still more to be done. This elemental army is still here. All right, it's like maybe they go back to their city of Rhodanos and they see that it's now under siege from elementals, and they have to figure out how to now defeat the elemental armies and all that kind of stuff. So it's like putting in that spot right there feels just about perfect to me, because it can be a good side quest end that can serve as is it like the end question mark for the players, and that's always fun. That's always fun when you add that type of stuff in there. So that gives us our most basic list of problems. Like I say, a lot of these will need to be refined to make sure they don't fall into sort of the struggle that I was talking about with the chapter they're in right now, where the Snows have retreated and will likely regroup again. King has ordered the players to give chase and find where they're going, and get info on the Snow army / encampments. That one is almost as much a solution as it is a problem, right? I've kind of prescribed the solution, which is, you need to get information here. So I don't like that, and some of these plot points that I put in are kind of falling into that. So I'll need to figure out how to massage them and make them more functional as just like, what is a problem that, like, no matter how they solve it will give them the information they need for future things and be a compelling enough problem that they'll want to solve it in any way they can find rather than being told to solve it. It's one of the important things too about like making sure that you give them problems. If you give them a prescribed solution, if you say you have to go do this and kill this guy, they're going to always be asking, well, why are we doing this? Like, and there can be emphasis on different things. Why are we doing this? Like, why does this guy need to die, right? So it's like, what's that guy's motivation and what's our motivation, right? The emphasis could also be on, why are we doing this? Why did the king choose them rather than a whole army to go deal with those things? And so when you start prescribing solutions, you leave yourself open for players to question and perhaps sidestep those things, and because they'll get frustrated, they'll feel like they're getting railroaded. But if the problem inherently requires solving, right? If they understand, what can be helpful is you can do something along the lines of, right, you drop enough information in this one, right, when they do find that information, we can drop enough to say like, they now understand the magnitude of, we have to find and destroy or steal or something with these artifacts that the Snolls are using. Otherwise, they're going to continue to get stronger, and then none of us will survive, right? That in and of itself is a problem that now they have motivation to solve because they understand what the problem is. and I don't need to tell them that that's what they need to do. So then they'll choose to go there, right? So it's a matter of kind of massaging the language and how you present these things, and it can be tricky, and we'll continue to work on that. But I think we're going to have to continue working on that next time because it is almost noon, which means here, let me bring us to just chatting here. So what's going to happen is I'm going to take a little bit of a break. I'm going to take about an hour-long break, just rest my voice and stuff like that. And then when I come back, we're going to switch gears and we're going to do some video gaming. We're playing Fallout 3 right now. So we're gonna come back this afternoon and play a little bit of Fallout 3. So that's what's gonna happen. But yeah, I think that's a really good amount of writing. I'm actually really excited about kind of getting into the storyboarding of all of this type of stuff here. It's something that I've been wanting to do, but haven't had time. Haven't made time. I shouldn't say haven't had time. I sit here and I write like 4 days a week. But I haven't made time to properly do this, and I'm really I'm excited that we're kind of working on this stuff and we can really start plotting out all these points, because then writing dungeons, planning, enemies, friends, foes, NPCs, all that kind of stuff, all of it will flow really well once we know exactly what we need, what resources we need to provide for players and all that, because we know each chapter, each setting is going to have everything. So I'm really excited about what we wrote today. I'm really pleased with the progress. Good stuff. So thank you for being here with me while we're working on all this stuff. I always appreciate the ideas you guys have, the conversational points you have, and I also just appreciate that people are interested enough in the stuff that I'm making to come and hang out with me. It's really flattering, and I'm honored to have you guys joining me. So thank you for that. My usual streaming schedule that I try to keep to, as long as my day job, the one that pays the bills and all that kind of stuff, doesn't get in the way. My usual streaming schedule is Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. I try to log on around 9 a.m. That's Eastern Time Zone, and do a couple hours of writing. Take a break right around noon Eastern Time Zone, and then come back around 1 p.m. To do a little bit of gaming in the afternoon for 2-3 hours, depending on how much time I have. That's my usual schedule that I try to keep to. Again, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. That said, this week is going to be different. I actually do have to be out of town for work events. Excuse me, for work events on Thursday and Friday this week. So today is the last day I'll be streaming this week, unfortunately. I'm actually really bummed about it. I'm not looking forward to the stuff that I have to do out of town. It's tedious, boring meetings, and I don't want to do it, but hey, it pays the bills. So I got to do that, unfortunately. So I won't be here Thursday or Friday. So this is the last time we'll be writing this week. But if you want to stop by next week, I will be back next week. As far as I know, next week I should be able to do most of the days. There might be one day next week that I can't stream, but more on that as the week progresses. If you want to get updates and notices about when I have to cancel streams and all that kind of stuff too, you can always join the Discord server that I have, as well as just following here on Twitch. And you can also follow me on Twitter. I do use Twitter to put announcements about when I'm going live. Discord is the best one to find out when I have to cancel streams. It's usually when I'll give a heads up notice about it. So if you want to do that, you can do that. Or if you're content to just wait until you get a notification, then come see what we're up to, that works too. Whatever works for you, I'm happy to do my best to accommodate. But that's what's going on. Yeah, and I think that's like all of my announcements. So yeah, I will be back in about an hour. Like I say, when I come back, we're going to play some more Fallout 3. We're going to continue the adventures of Belinda, the Wasteland Explorer. It's going to be good stuff. So, yeah, again, thank you so much to everyone who stopped by and hung out with me. I really appreciate it. I'm always flattered that you guys choose to, of all the places you could be, you're here hanging out with me, and that means a lot to me. So I appreciate you guys. Take care of yourselves. Hopefully I'll see you this afternoon. If not, have an awesome rest of your week. Have an awesome weekend. And I guess I'll see you on Halloween, because next Monday is Halloween. So that's fun. Maybe I'll have to do something special for that. We'll see. I don't know. I'm going to try and get through my work stuff and then think about fun stuff. So at any rate, thank you again. I'll be back in a little bit. So hopefully I'll see you later. Regardless of when I see you next, though, I appreciate you guys. Take care of yourselves, and I'll catch you cats on the flip side.